All right, so Joe said that everybody wanted an update on the Sunshine Act, Right to Know Law, and Ethics Act. So we'll hit them in that order. So the Sunshine Act is essentially ensures that agency business is conducted in the public unless it meets some exceptions. And it's really the legislative intent is the it comes right out and says it's the right to public to be present at all meetings of agencies and to witness the deliberations, policy formation, and decision making. And it goes further and says that secrecy in public affairs undermines the full faith and confidence in the government. So that's really the intent of what it tries to do. And the big thing for the township is to know that they are an agency. That's one of the definitions in the act. So it fits that definition of agency that is governed by the Sunshine Act. And what it requires is that all official action and deliberations by a quorum of the members of the agency shall take place at a meeting open to the public unless it meets three exceptions, and that's the exceptions under section 707 of the act, which relates to exceptions to open meetings, 708, which is executive sessions, or 712, which is meetings of the General Assembly, which doesn't really relate to the township. But the important thing there is to know that it's official actions or deliberations by a quorum. So if since you have a 5-member board, 2 of you could really meet at any time to talk about whatever you want because you're not a quorum of the board. And the other requirement is that it's at a meeting, and a meeting is defined as a prearranged gathering. So if 3 of you would happen to bump into each other at the grocery store, you know that you're not violating the Sunshine Act. And you should still refrain from talking about agency business and coming up with policy, but you're not technically violating the act if you're just bumping into each other by accident. There's definitions of official action and deliberation, which is pretty much the definition that you would give to, and that would be things that would be part of policy or actions that you would take, and the discussions leading up to that. Agency business is basically the framing or enacting of laws or policy or entering into contracts. Administrative action is excluded from agency business, and that's just something important to know. And that's basically is that if you take action which tells the staff or agency to do something, that administrative action can happen outside of the open meeting because you've already voted for it in the open meeting. Some of the big exceptions to know are essentially executive sessions, and executive sessions can be held for a number of reasons. One is to talk about labor or personnel issues, employment issues. Attorney exception is consulting with your attorney, because that's attorney-client privilege. The real estate exception is sometimes misunderstood, and that's really if you're purchasing or leasing property, it's exempt from discussion in the public up until the time that you enter in or actually close on the real estate and or close on the lease. And the reason for that is you don't want to go out seeking to buy a piece of property and then find out someone's using your information to get that piece of property out from underneath you, and then you wind up paying more for it. So you're allowed to keep those things private until it's consummated. And there's privilege exception, that if you fall into some other privilege, and a lot of that is deals with personnel or attorney-client privilege and things like that as well. And then there's stuff that applies to universities, which isn't us. There are limitations to what you're allowed to do in executive session. There you're allowed to discuss items. You can take a straw vote, but for there to be any action out of an executive session, you actually have to go back to the public meeting and actually vote on the action. So while you could take a straw vote, it's not binding on anybody, and you then go out and vote for it in the public meeting, and then the official action is valid. It then also goes into what has to be provided to the public to inform them that you have meetings coming up, and essentially you have to give public notice of your first meeting every year, and then at that meeting vote on the meetings for the remainder of the year. And if it's one of those meetings, you don't have to have a meeting for it, because that's just your general reason to have meetings every month. But then you're also allowed to have special meetings. And it goes into what's required for the special meetings, notice for that. And usually, while it's not technically required, usually for special meetings, if we do any type of written notice, we would post a reason for it, just to tell the public why you're meeting and that you're not conducting general business there, but it is for a specific purpose. It then also goes one step further. And if there's an emergency reason to have a meeting, you can have that without any notice at all. So in the public notice, it goes through what has to be in there, and that's essentially place, time, and date of the meetings. And you're also supposed to post them at your township building as well. It then goes into the conduct of the meetings and public participation, that the public is allowed to bring recording devices, and the township is allowed to adopt rules and regulations for attendance of meetings. And that comes into if you want to limit where they can videotape from, that they can't use your power sources, and if you want to limit how long that they can speak at public participation, you can do that as well. It also says that you have to have public participation at every meeting and before the action of the board. So I know you're pretty set on how you have that on your agenda. So then it also requires you to have minutes of the public meeting. And we'll get into that in the right to know process as well. So that the minutes, essentially, if I fail to mention it later, the draft minutes are not public documents that nobody can get, but once they're adopted by the board, anybody can get a copy of them under the right to know law. It then has penalties for violating the act as well. The right to know law is essentially the public's right to access to your documents and records. An important thing to know on this is that every document that you have starts out with a presumption that it is a public record and can be obtained by an individual. And then it's up to the municipality, the township, to state why it doesn't, why it meets one of the exceptions. And that's essentially if it's exempt by a state or federal law or regulation, if it's privileged, or if it fits into one of the exceptions set forth in section 708 of the act, which I'll go through in a second as well. And it basically says information regardless of physical form is obtainable by the public. And that means if it's digital form, paper form, what it doesn't require, interesting enough, is that if it's just something that's known out there, if it's not in a document or in a digital database or something like that, you do not have to create it. So if they ask for a list of salaries and you just don't have one, you don't have to create it to give to one. You simply say you don't have it. And then obviously they might change their request and ask for the salaries of certain people or certain positions, and they may be able to get it in a different way, but you don't have to give it to them unless it matches what they request. Just trying to make sure I hit all the highlights, and some of them I already hit here. All right, so the exceptions that aren't the obvious ones, and that is if they violate a state or federal statute, or they fit some other exemption or a privilege, then you have to meet one of the 708 exceptions. And I actually have, and if anybody wants it, I have a cheat sheet. Find it here. It's like 2 pages of pretty small type. I know you probably can't see that, but it lists 30 exceptions in kind of a shortened form. But the ones that really apply to the township are documents that show loss of fund or would potentially cause personal security issues, public safety issues, and that would be something as obvious as police procedures or something like that. Infrastructure security is another one. That's an obvious one. If they ask for blueprints of the township building, you don't have to give them something like that, because it could lead to them wanting to do some type of terrorist event. Computer security, they're asking for something that might give the ability for them to hack in your computers. You don't have to give it. Health records of individuals, you don't have to give. Personal identification of individuals, and that's records containing social security numbers, home addresses, cell phone numbers, stuff like that, you can take out of of information that you give. Personnel records, collective bargaining agreements. You don't have to give them while you're negotiating. Obviously, once you enter into the contract, you have to give the formal contract, but not during the negotiation stage. Drafts of resolutions and regulations you don't have to give, but obviously the adopted regulation you would have to give later. Any notes or records of deliberations you don't have to give. Your own personal notes, working papers, you don't have to give. Any records dealing with criminal investigations or non-criminal investigations, 911 calls. Again, draft minutes, that's the one I said in case I forget. Draft minutes you don't have to give, but once they're adopted, you have to give them. Appraisals and reviews, and that goes too. So if you're getting an appraisal on a piece of property, you don't have to say that you got appraisal on that piece of property, and you don't have to give it again, because that's what somebody would use that again to try and negotiate with that property owner against you. Contract bids, you don't have to give until the contract is awarded. Again, you just don't want someone having an unfair advantage in the bidding process. And then information about minors. There's other, like I said, there's a list of 30, and I can give you the full list if anybody wants it. The process, it also goes through the process of how somebody would request documents, and essentially it has to be a written request. The township can honor oral requests if you want to. I would suggest you don't. If anyone does that, I would ask them to put it in written form and submit it. And if the requester wants to bind the township to have to adhere to the right to know law, they would have to put it in writing. So they've got no ability to force you to give it to them if it's just a verbal request. So, and the other thing is it documents what people are asking for staff and for the supervisors as well. There are requirements that you have regulations, which basically tells somebody, and forms which tell somebody what they have to fill out, who they have to submit it to, and you have to appoint a right to know officer. And then once that written request is submitted, the general rule is that the township has to make a good faith effort to determine if the record requested is a public record. So again, the presumption is it is a public record. Either staff looks at it. A lot of times they'll get it over to the solicitor's office to look at it to see if it is a public record or if it's not. And then the agency or the township has 5 days to respond in one of 3 ways. It's essentially to grant a request and give the documents, to deny the request and give specific reasons why it's denied, or third is to invoke a 30-day calendar to look into the documents to see if documents are responsive and if they or if they are privileged. Again, you don't have to create records, but if a record has a combination of public information and privileged information, and the privileged information can be redacted out, it's up to the township to actually redact those items out and give the portion of the document which is a public record. So that's sometimes what takes the 30 days is actually reading through every document. I've had these where 1,000 pages is what we're preparing to give to somebody. So someone literally has to look through all those 1,000 pages to make sure that you're not giving away any privileged information or protected information. And then it goes through essentially if you deny it or you don't respond, it goes through the appeal process, fees and penalties for not adhering to the sunshine, or excuse me, the right to know law. Lastly, the Ethics Act is, and all these acts are fairly short, by the way. They're only a couple pages long each, and you think they'd be pretty easy to follow, but once you get members of the public involved and lawyers involved, obviously they're going to disagree on certain things, and they then refer to a lot of other laws for the privilege and protection of information that you don't want to give out. But the Ethics Act is essentially there to make sure that the public office, it states that a public office is a public trust, and that any effort to realize personal financial gain through public office other than the compensation provided by law, that would be your salary, or if you have insurance through the township ordinances, is a violation of the trust given to you in your position. And essentially the Ethics Act is broken into 3 parts. There's declarations, recognition, and legislative intent. And the declaration is what I just said, is that it's, you're there, to work for the public, and it applies to public officials, public employees, candidates for office, and nominees for public office or employment. So it is broad reaching, and it does apply to people actually before they're elected. And that all those groups of people are prohibited from seeking improper influence. So the restricted activities include anything that's a conflict of interest, and that's essentially would be voting on anything that you would have financial gain for you or your family. Seeking improper influence, and that would be somebody else coming to you to try and influence your vote. So it's actually a violation on their part to come to you to seek that from one of you or us. Quite frankly, I'm a public official too. Is to accept improper influence, to accept an honorarium, which would be essentially a payment or a position that would benefit you for public action, or promising or having somebody, you promise to take an action contingent on receiving a payment in the future. You can't enter into contracts either, so that would essentially prohibit any public official from entering into a contract valued at $500 or more with a governmental entity which the public official is associated with, unless the contract is awarded through the open bid process. So if you would work for just the Haynes and Kibble House, and Haynes and Kibble House voted or bid on something, you'd be allowed to, or they'd be allowed to have that contract because it went through the public bidding process. It does apply to former officials or employees as well, is that a former public official can't represent anybody in front of the township for 1 year after their time with the township is done. You can't misuse financial statements, and it actually requires later. That's one of the things in here, is that every public official employee files that financial statement before May of every year. And I know we're all used to doing that. It also provides specific requirements for voting conflicts. And that's essentially that if an issue is coming up that you would have a conflict with, and that would be, I guess, if you have a company or a spouse or a child that is trying to do a contract with the township, that's not prohibited, but you are prohibited from voting on it. And what happens is, what you're supposed to do is, before that comes up on the agenda, you're supposed to announce that you have a conflict of interest. You're supposed to announce what it is, and you're supposed to give that in writing to the secretary. And if it would result in there not being enough people, so if 3 of you had the same conflict and would result in only 2 people being able to vote on a conflict, so long as you followed this procedure and you said why you have the conflict, you gave the written memorandum to the secretary, you would be allowed to vote on it if it's necessary to have your vote, because in the second class township, you need at least 3 votes to enter into a contract. So I think that's probably, and then it goes into same thing as the other 2 acts, where it goes into if someone wants to make a complaint, goes into the investigation, penalties, and appeals provisions as well. But that's everything in a nutshell. Obviously, I can answer any questions that came up. Hopefully, I wasn't too fast for everybody.
I have a couple real quick, if
Sure.
you wouldn't mind. The first one was the grocery store. 3 supervisors see each other in the grocery store. Are they allowed to talk about any particular thing?
You are. What I would do is because it's not a prearranged meeting, so that's not governed by the act. But I would still caution you from doing it. To just people are going to start. If someone walks by and sees you having that conversation, and then over here you're talking about agency business, you should probably not talk about agency business. But it's not a technical violation of the act.
I was because I've always been under the impression as long as you don't deliberate, it's okay if 3 supervisors are there shooting the breeze about a particular item.
Yep, you're allowed to do it. So
okay. Another quick question is, what are the official minutes? Are the official minutes the minutes of the ones that the secretary takes, or is it are the official minutes the actual video that we used,
So
videotape?
the video, it's the official minute. So it's the written version of what happened. So, and the videotape is one of the things that you don't have to produce. So,
Okay.
so what it is, and it's the written minutes after the next meeting when you've approved them. So it's not the draft version that you get in your packages.
Right.
Once they're approved by you by the vote of the board and they are adopted as your official minutes, that's the one that's subject to the right to know.
Right. And one last thing, I have a cell phone. It's my own personal cell phone that I get emails and everything on. I get them all I get them on like 3 devices from the township.
Yep.
All at the same time. But sometimes I'll answer things on my cell phone. How responsible am I if something were to come up that I have to hand over my cell phone?
So as long as you are, and you have a township email account, right?
I have a township email account, but it's my phone.
So the phone shouldn't matter. So as long as everything's going through the township email account, then that's what's discoverable, not your phone. Now, if you would happen to reply using a personal email, that's what would then open up your cell phone, your personal computer and stuff like that. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff or Tim, that I assume all the township emails go through a township server and then bounce out. So it's that server that would then be discoverable, not your cell phone.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all one server.
Yep. And that's a caution to everybody is try not to do any township business on your personal emails, because if someone finds one email from your personal account, that could lead to the Office of Open Records wanting to look at all your personal emails.
Yeah.
So try and avoid doing that.
Yep.
Look at that. That's like perfect timing. And we're always here. Any questions that pop up, obviously anyone could ask Joe or me at any time, because they do the questions that are difficult are the ones you have to dig down to nitty gritty and sometimes look at case law to see how it applies. But answering specific questions are always easier than answering just a hypothetical.
Thanks, Eric.
Absolutely. Glad to help.
Jumped up.
All right, are we ready to go, Jeff?
Yes,
All right,
whenever you're ready.
okay. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Board of Supervisors of Upper Providence, Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. Good evening, everyone, and thank you those who registered as attendees for tonight's virtual board meeting. Because of COVID-19 restrictions and in compliance with CDC protocols, tonight's meeting will be in virtual only format, and we will likely remain in this virtual setting for the next few months as we await the passing of the second wave and the availability of the vaccine. Okay, normally at this point in the meeting, we say the Pledge of Allegiance. That is problematic in this format. So I'm going to ask that we take a moment of silence to think about the police officers and others who died in the recent assault on the United States Capitol building, January 6th. And of the grim milestone we just passed of 400,000 of our fellow citizens dying of the COVID-19 coronavirus. Let's take a moment of silence. All right, thank you. All right. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda for tonight. Do I have a motion to approve the board agenda for tonight?
I'll make a motion to approve the board's agenda for this evening.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any no votes? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Now we're at the public comment section of the meeting. Here.
If you have any public comment, there should be a button, an icon at the bottom of your screen that says raise hand. Just raise your hands and we'll get to you as soon as we can.
Yep, it's the same rules as it when we're in person. You'll need to state your name, your street address, and if you could hold your comments to 3 minutes, that would be great. Do we have anybody that wants to comment tonight, Jeff?
Yes. Lisa Mossy had her hand up first, so I'll allow her to speak.
Jeff, I'm not sure why you were chuckling about that.
Actually, there was one person that had her hand up a little bit quicker, but she took it down. So
Okay, so I have two questions, actually. The first one is, I just want to make sure that there's going to be an opportunity to comment on the presentation of Park House after that meeting, because I tend to think that maybe a lot of our comments will be answered during that presentation. So I would hope that you guys will allow for some time for public comment on that, because I know there's several people who are logged in to do that. Are you going to allow that, Mr. Chairman?
Do you want to make, we want public comments after the presentation of the Park House?
Well, I mean, I'm sure you don't want to hear our public comments right now before they've had the chance to present what they're going to present. Because I feel like some of the questions and comments that we might have may be addressed during their presentation. So I'm asking if there will be an opportunity for the public to comment after the presentation.
hey, Lisa, while the chairman's contemplating, can I get your name and address just as a matter of formality?
Oh, Lisa Mossy, 311 Montgomery Avenue, Oaks.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think we can allow that, Lisa, if someone wants to speak afterwards, same rules, 3 minutes. But I would just say this, tonight is not a meeting to approve anything.
We all understand that, Mr. Starling.
This came in late, so the township staff and even us have only had one real work day to review it. But it is one of the last large tracts available to potentially develop in the township.
It is the last large tract to develop in the township, Mr. Starling.
Okay.
The other question that I have is, how much longer is this Zoom stuff going to be going on? Because it just seems to me very awkward. People's phones cut out, their dialogue cuts out. It's very hard to follow the meeting on Zoom. And, you know, restaurants are open for capacity. We have that giant meeting room that several of the current board members said was a waste. I mean, obviously we can put people in there completely socially distanced. I don't see any reason to continue the Zoom. And that's all my public comment for tonight.
Okay. Jeff, do you
Park
have anyone else that wants to comment?
Judy Sheets is next. Can I get your name and address, please, Ms. Sheets? Ms. Sheets, you just need to unmute yourself. Okay. Ms. Sheets, can I have your address, name and address, please?
Judy Sheets, 117 Old State Road, Royersford.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
My comment is pretty much what Lisa was saying. I would prefer not to have a Zoom meeting. I think this is too important a project to try to tackle over Zoom. I agree that we have a community meeting room that we could utilize. I have many questions about this proposed development. If we're going to have comments later, I'll wait and comment then.
That's
Okay,
good.
yeah,
And if
so-
anyone else in the call wants to wait till after, I know there's a lot of people on here. We can see 106 participants. So if a lot of them have to do with Park House, maybe we wait till then You don't have to do it right now since we're allowing that time.
I think that's a good idea, Supervisor Council.
If that's the case,
All right.
we just need you to hit the button at the bottom again that lowers
Excuse me,
your
but if I
hand.
could, clearly, the question about the Zoom meeting, there's 100 people on, and I don't know, I know Mr. Starling, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned the prohibitions. I don't know why we're still holding the Zoom meeting. We can be socially distanced in Wegmans, we can be socially distanced in Target. I think we can be socially distanced in a meeting room designed for 200 people. So I know it's too late to unring the bell tonight, but I think in the February meeting, we should come up with a plan how to socially distance a number of people into that meeting going forward. We've done this for a year, and important topics like this are coming up, and we can no longer effectively bring bring what we do and hear the voices of the public on the Zoom. It's not effective, and it's not, to me, it's just not something that we should.
I'm willing to discuss it between now and the February meeting. So
So Jeff, how many people do you have on that Zoom there? How many people do you have logged in?
Right now, we have 109 participants. I'm assuming, I'm going to lower Lisa's hand for her. I'm assuming she doesn't need to speak anymore. And then Michael, or maybe she would still like to speak. Michael Kajak is the only other person that's not lowered their hand. So
Hello.
He's free to speak.
If I might say something here, none of this board relishes the idea of doing these Zoom meetings this way. We would all prefer to be in that meeting hall. But if we had 100 and some people show up in that meeting hall, there's no way we'd be able to be effectively social distancing in that room with 100 people. So for right now, it's probably a good thing, and we'll consider it in the future. But for right now, it's the way we're going to operate.
We don't need to put 100 people in the room. We can come up with a number according to the guidelines, what the number is in the room for the size of the room. And we can, maybe it's 50, maybe it's 25, but it still allows us to put people in the room, and people could stay outside the room. And if they want to, if we come up with a system, if anybody wants to talk, they can come in and come into the room and leave. So we could put a man on the moon. I think we can shuffle people in and out of the public meeting.
Talk about
Okay.
this. I mean, we hear people's comments and we appreciate them, and we'll figure something out between now and then. Whether or not we stay this way for health reasons or we do what Al suggests, we'll talk about it and come up with a conclusion. I don't want to take up a lot of tonight's time because I know a lot of people are interested in Park House.
And so we're going to open up a second public comment period just after the Park House presentation. And is there anyone that wants to speak on anything other than Park House? So if you don't want to speak on Park House, now would be your time to comment.
Michael Kajak had his hand up. I'm not sure what his comments regarding.
I was
Mr.
going to be
Kajak?
speaking about Park House, but if we're having public participation after the presentation and plans, then I'd rather speak after, as maybe a few of my questions will be answered at that time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Michael.
Bob McManus has raised his hand.
Okay, it's actually Marge McManus. We're both sitting here.
Okay.
I
Name
just,
and address, please.
this is, my address is 124 Hampshire Court.
Thank you.
Yes, I really like Zoom, but you guys are bad at it. I can't hear half of what you're saying, and my hearing's not defective. But it goes in, it goes out, it wobbles. You know, you gotta find a better solution. That's all. Take care. Stay safe. Lower my hand.
Thank you. Mr. or Mrs. Pennypacker had their hand raised.
Hi, yeah, this is Ed Pennypacker, 271 Hafner Road, Royersford. Have you considered maybe for some of these large meetings that where a lot of people wish to be involved, you might try the high school auditorium?
I think that would be problematic, meeting at a location outside of the township, but we can consider that. We're going to, we will investigate between now and February, but I can just say I'm pretty impressed with how our township staff has kept up with what the COVID recommendations are. And so, but we will consider it before February. And
Tony Patrick has raised her hand.
Yes, here you go.
Tony,
Okay,
name
so-
and address, please.
Okay, 410 Laurel Lane, Oaks, PA 19456.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just wondered, I don't know if you see my question. It says, what are you doing about the runoff on Gums and Laurel Lane? The thing is that when the houses were built over here, you guys told us that you were going to put well, first you said that the berms were eliminated when people started putting fences up and sheds in. Well, I literally have pictures of what this looked like before these fences and sheds were put up, and there was no berms in between our property from me and Hawthorne and Larkspur roads. So I'm wondering, and at the time, like Don was on the board, and Laura, Lisa, Mossy, and Phil Barker were on the board and said that they were going to come through and put some berms along Gums Road to help prevent us from getting water in our basements and stuff. Now, I have 3 cell pumps in my basement that are nonstop, going all the time. Where are the berms that were promised to us back then? Anybody?
We could look into it for you. I'm not familiar with that, but I'm sure someone has the historical background for it. We can get back to you, Tony.
Well, that would be nice, but like, is there a time limit that someone would get back to me? Because like John even came out here and said that. Remember me, John?
I remember you, yes. I'm at a loss. There's nothing that we can do for you down there at this point in the game. Berms are not going to solve your problem. The township doesn't have the money to be putting the stormwater runoff system into your neighborhood. The way that the neighborhood was built years ago, the contractor, whoever built the development down there, just didn't have that foresight to put that kind of infrastructure in. And it's beyond us giving you any help. And I've been down there immediately, like 5 minutes after a heavy rain. The water comes down like you're experiencing. And shortly thereafter, the water kind of seems to go away for some reason. Goes off into that one little creek that runs down there. But other than that, I don't know what to tell you. I don't have an answer for you.
Okay, but you guys did tell me that you're going to put berms along Gums Road, and not one berm has been put. Okay, so wait a second, let me talk. On Fern Lane, you have gullies. You literally have concrete gullies 1 block from me, back west of me, that have directed down towards Mrs. Woodward's house into a sewer drain there that runs behind Mrs. Martinelli's house. Now, trees have come down there behind Eisenhower's facility that block that storm runoff drain there. That Mrs. Martinelli has to call you guys to say, come down here and clear that. That's not fair to us. So no, that water does not dissipate that quickly. I've got video, John, that 5 minutes doesn't do anything to my backyard, where it comes down and goes into my basement, goes into my neighbor's basement. That you might see the water that's not on the road, but the water in our backyards are there, and it's not fair to us that you guys promised us a berm, and even the guy, I can't remember his name, that's in charge of the Department of Transportation, had talked to me about this 4 years ago, that said, okay, we'll be coming down sometime and put those berms in, but nobody's ever done this for us.
Tony, I'll have somebody look into it again. but I can't promise you anything. We'll look into it again, but again,
Okay, so
I can't promise.
Why are we paying taxes to you guys and nothing gets done for us individually? We're getting a 12-foot Wendy sign for no freaking reason, but we can't get protection for our own properties. I'm sick of you guys doing this to us. It's nauseating.
Tony, all I can tell you is we will look into it, but I'm not promising you anything.
Okay, so when can I get a date of when you guys are gonna look into it? I want a specific date.
I'll start looking into it again tomorrow.
Okay, John, I'll hold you to that.
Please
Thank
hold me
you.
to it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, John. Anybody left, Jeff?
No, that is all.
Right. All right, so we will add a second public comment section just after the Park House presentation. All right. Executive session report. There was no executive session to report this evening. Approval of the bill list. All right, we need to approve the bill list for the period January 1st through 2021 through January 13th, 2021 in the amount of $808,273.26. I assume everybody had a chance to review it. Is there any question or discussion about it? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the bill list from January 1st to January 13th in the amount of $808,273.26.
A second.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second to pay the bill list. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, and we have two sets of minutes that were in our packet that need to be approved. The minutes for the January 4th, 2021 reorganization meeting and the minutes for the January 4th, 2020 regular meeting. And I'll entertain a motion to approve both of those.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the January 4th reorganization meeting and the January 4th regular meeting.
All
I'll
right.
second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. We have no public hearings tonight. So we'll move right into the old business portion of the meeting. That chatter in the background, is there somebody not muted? Or is that just feedback?
I think that's an echo from you, Phil.
Yeah, I don't know why though. Okay. It's getting worse. They're right. It is getting worse. All right. Okay. Consider enacting ordinance 587 regarding the realignment of Jacob Street with Walnut Street in Montclair. Do we have someone on the staff that wants to speak to that?
I can speak to that. Ordinance 587 was before the board previously for you to authorize advertisement. Effectively, it memorializes the partial abandonment and partial relocation of Jacob Street in conjunction with the Montclair alignment project of Jacob Street and Walnut Street. As an aside, an advertisement ran in the newspaper yesterday, advertising bids for the project. We expect the bid opening on the 22nd of February, and we anticipate having a recommendation for award before the board for your March 15th meeting.
All right. If there's no more discussion on that, I think we all know what this is. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll be happy to make that motion. I make a motion to approve ordinance 587 for the realignment of Jacob Street and Walnut Street in Montclair.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor of enacting ordinance 587, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now on to new business. I sent a letter to the township manager. I had originally taken a one-year appointment on the Human Relations Commission, and it's never a good idea, as you know, for a supervisor to sit on any board or commission other than the Board of Supervisors. So I offered my resignation, and we have someone to appoint him in place, and I would ask the board to accept that resignation. And I'll make a motion to accept Bill Starling's resignation. Can I get a second?
I'll second that for you, Bill, but good luck.
All right, thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, and I would like to, like the board to consider appointing Joe Lewis. Laurie and I both interviewed Joe, and he's a great candidate to replace me for a one-year term on the Human Relations Commission. I'll go ahead and make that motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, consider adoption of the 2021 Emergency Operations Plan. We'll need someone from the township to speak to that.
I can speak to that, Supervisor Starling. This is Rich Russell, the Emergency Management Coordinator. Title 35 of the Pennsylvania Code, Chapter 13 specifically, as well as the fact that we're within the short distance Limerick nuclear power plant, we're required to have the Office of Emergency Management. And in the Office of Emergency Management, each year we're required to provide an emergency operations plan that has been reviewed and signed off by the 5 supervisors, stating that you've seen this and that we have the plan and that we'll enact it if we need to protect the residents of the township in the event of any kind of emergency or disaster. The current document that I have for the board to look at and sign is the public part of it. There's a fairly significant part that is not a public document that has a lot of other individual information about responses and things like that. So I have this is up for you guys to approve and adopt and sign.
Okay. All right. Do we have any question or discussion on that? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion for the adoption of the 2021 Emergency Operations Plan.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion to adopt the 2021 Emergency Operations Plan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you.
Chairman, can I have a point of order here, if I could?
Yes.
5 of us on the board, 5 votes. We need to hear 5 yays or 5 noes. There can't be 4. Everybody needs to vote, okay?
I hear you.
I'm not picking up 5 voices, I'm picking up 4. That's all.
Who's not saying it? Or
I only hear 4 voices. Let's just going forward. If we're gonna vote, everybody's gotta vote.
Okay, that's why I asked for the no's in case there are any. So,
But there's still, if there's 5 votes, there are 5 people voting yes, then there has to be 5 voices for yes. I'm not picking up 5 voices. That's all I'm saying.
all right,
Can I add one more thing real quick?
good.
Cheryl asked if all 5 of you could stop in over the next week or so to sign the actual EOP.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. I got to see a presentation of this already, but the whole board's going to now see a presentation from FPM on a proposed comprehensive financial strategic plan.
Mr. Starling, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Board members, can you hear me?
Yes, Tim.
Yeah.
I would like to introduce the board to the 2 PFM team members who will be doing this study, proposed study. We have I've asked Jeff to unmute these 2 presenters. We have Vianne Lang and Dean Kaplan.
I don't see Mr. Kaplan on the meeting.
What's that?
I don't see a Mr. Kaplan in the meeting.
Okay, well, is Vianne on?
Yes, he is.
Okay, go ahead and unmute her. I'm just going to give a little bit of bio on both of them. Vianne serves as the PFM's senior management consultant and is proposed to be the lead project manager. She has done numerous financial and operational reviews of various Pennsylvania municipalities and counties, most recently in Cheltenham, Norristown, Lancaster, and Pittsburgh. Vianne holds a master's degree in public policy from Johns Hopkins University. Dean serves as PFM's managing director and co-leader of its consulting group. Like Vianne, Dean has worked on several multi-year planning engagements with several PA towns and school districts. Before joining PFM, Dean was a budget director for the city of Philadelphia. And he holds a master's degree in public administration from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. And also on this team will be our Jamie Schlesinger. You probably remember Jamie. He helped us get our AAA bond rating last month. A big feat. Our goal now is to keep our AAA bond rating. So I'm going to turn this over now to Vianne and Dean. And you may want to promote Vianne to panelists, Jeff.
Hi, everyone. I think, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Vianne.
Hear you.
Great, perfect. And I see the screen, so I'll ask to advance the slide when I'm ready. Hi, everyone. My name is Vianne, and I'm as Tim has mentioned, I'm a senior managing consultant at PFM. You know, just a brief introduction. I don't have a whole lot of slides today. I only have 8 slides, so bear with me for 10 minutes, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. You know, really, I started my career working for the Baltimore City government, and then came to PFM in 2013. And over the last 8 years, my focus has really been working for Pennsylvania municipalities. So as shown on the bio on the previous page, kind of, you know, I've worked all over Pennsylvania and have helped, you know, different municipalities develop 5-year plans. And one thing I can tell you is every place is different, even though, you know, those are all municipalities in Pennsylvania. You know, the other thing about these kind of 5-year plans, which I understand the township is interested in, is that it's almost easier to develop a plan, which is usually a document or a Word document that kind of provides a kind of roadmap as to how you can achieve financial sustainability. But implementation is just as difficult, if not more difficult. So I have the pleasure and also sometimes the frustration of helping different municipalities in Pennsylvania under the state's distressed government program to implement these plans. And I think, you know, as consultants, one of our fears is, you know, a plan is sits on a shelf and gets dusty, right? So our hope is to help you develop a plan that reflects your unique vision. You know, this is not going to be kind of, you know, someone else's plan with your name slapped on it. Hopefully through this kind of process, we're able to help you develop a financial plan that provides you with the roadmap, but also reflects your unique needs and vision for who you want Upper Providence to be. Public Financial Management, PFM, is the company that I work for, and we're headquartered in Philadelphia. So because we are headquartered in Philadelphia, we're particularly active in this region. So we kind of list the places that we have worked with, and obviously we are already the financial advisor for the township itself. But we list this not to say that, you know, these places are different. You know, just to pick an example, you're very different from Cheltenham Township, even though you're in Montgomery County. But we list these here for 2 reasons. One, it's helpful, I think, to have relationships across different townships and municipalities in the county. when it comes to benchmarking, right? You want to see kind of how you fare, compared to other AAA rated townships. So when it comes to kind of having different relationships, we do have that, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of easily be able to benchmark because of the relationships that we have. Secondly, we list this because last year, it's crazy to talk about last year because it's only 2020 last year. We worked very closely with Montgomery County, first to help them reopen when the COVID pandemic first started, but later on to help them look into kind of the 911 operations, since the county, not municipalities in Pennsylvania, provide that kind of emergency communication services. So just from kind of working on different multi-year plans, we know that oftentimes you need data from the county, right? Assessment data is all from the county, and kind of having that relationship with different municipalities and on the county level usually helps advance some of the things that, frankly, is hard to do on your own. You can advance to the next slide here. Our first step is to listen to you. As I mentioned, I live in Philadelphia. PFM is headquartered in Philadelphia. So really no one knows Upper Providence as well as you do. I have visited, but I can't say I know a whole lot of it. So our first step is to listen to you. So we had a meeting with the township manager and kind of got a broad, very high level, very preliminary overview of your strengths and challenges. And I want to walk through them quickly. But needless to say, we need to learn more. We need to listen to you and know specifically what you want the township to be. Our understanding is the township is a AAA rated municipality, a very strong financial position, a very sound reserves, and that's your strengths, right? You have a strong EIT growth over the years, but that is subject to some risk in the future. But at the same time, you also have some challenges, just like everyone else, right? You have a structural challenges. Every municipality I've worked with often struggle with that, which is your revenues are often not growing as fast as it needs to be to cover the growth of your expenditures. And so every place where we work with struggle with that. And for you, I think, what makes it exciting to work for you is that you guys have proven to be able to make the hard decisions that you need to make. The township has started establishing a real estate tax in 2017, something I believe, even though I wasn't around then, I believe was difficult, but you have proved to be someone who is able to make these hard decisions with a longer term vision. And I think that's what it makes it exciting to have the prospect of working with you. And then finally, of course, with the COVID-19 pandemic, everyone is struggling with that. And the challenge here is the uncertainty, right? It's hard to tell you what exactly your EIT impact is going to be from the pandemic at this point in time. But where we can be helpful is to kind of see, how sensitive it is. What if, do several what if scenarios to see how sensitive your EIT revenues is, and recognize that. Because you do need a roadmap as you kind of come out of this pandemic, as we all come up with this pandemic, and recognize that this recession, we still don't know how long or how deep this recession is going to be, and how that kind of number focused revenue drop is going to turn, how that's going to affect your services, how that's going to affect the quality of life, and what you need to do in order to sustain that and to improve that in the future. So that's kind of our broad overview. Again, we need to learn more about it, and excited to hear from you more on this. Let me turn to the next slide and talk a little bit about our process of developing a 5-year plan and what the scope is going to be. I often say that public financial management is not a terribly creative name, but it's certainly a descriptive one. And the financial management is what we're strong at, and is what we do. And so for every 5-year plan, we recommend starting with a financial condition assessment and say, what if you don't do anything in the next 5 years? Not saying that you won't, you will. Every place has to kind of adjust and make changes. But what if you don't do anything different? What if I take my hands off my steering wheel and say, I'm going to let go and see what happens? That exercise, seeing what your 5-year financial projection look like, that exercise is important because it quantifies your financial challenges for you. And that's why we always start off with that. The township already has its own projection tool. And so what we would do here is to kind of help you refine some of those projections, and hopefully you'll be able to do that moving forward, right? That should be a recurring exercise, not just a one-time exercise. And hopefully this kind of 5-year plan will help you kick off that wheel, so to speak, and help you be able to update that on an ongoing basis so that you can consistently not only look at the budget on a 1-year basis, but look at your finances on a multi-year basis. Next slide, once we've completed the financial condition assessment, I think, this is we'll go forward with the operational review. It's fairly high level. We can't deep into very deeply given the scope of the project, but this is really for me at least, the most exciting part of the project, because you can't see what's going on in the township just by looking at numbers alone. I believe you have to talk to people. You have to see how things, are operating. So through this kind of high level operational review, we'll do a couple of things. We want to talk to your departments and see how, how they do what they do. If COVID allows, we want to tour your facilities and see what kind of investments you need in terms of infrastructure and your buildings maintenance. Those are really important of a 5-year plan, because it kind of lets us lift our eyes off of the numbers and be able to see, how you operate. And ultimately, what's most important here is to see whether what you're doing is actually resulting in what you see as a vision for the township, right? Oftentimes we keep on doing what we're doing, but oftentimes that road take us down the extent where we often end up not where we want to be. And so to help you kind of align your mission with your management, that's the kind of the goal of the high level operational review we want to have. Next slide. So combining the financial piece and the high level operational piece, we'll kind of get to the third step of the multi-year plan, which is the ultimate goal is to develop a menu of options for you. For any government to be financially sustainable, you kind of have to do work on both sides of the financial equation. You can't just raise revenues, period. You can't just reduce expenditures, period. And you can't do just those two without making any investments whatsoever. So kind of those things really need to tie together, and our goal is at the end of this process, after reviewing finances, after talking to your department directors and touring your facilities, be able to come up with a menu of options. And the menu of options will provide the kind of initiative impact for you. So saying, what was the impact of doing, option A, and what is the impact of doing option B? And does that together help us fill the projected financial deficits? Right? That's one of the important goals of developing a menu of options for you. Secondly, we don't expect you to like every recommendation. In fact, it's good if you don't like some of them, because it means that we're pushing our envelope that way. But the goal is to give you kind of all the options on the table so that you're able to pick and choose and see what you like, whether what you like would actually be able to fill the deficit. And I think that's an important exercise. The last point I want to make here in terms of the menu of options is, we can't develop a menu of options without listening to you. So I think through this kind of last piece of the process, we really need to hear from you what you want Upper Providence to be in order to create those options, because at the end of the day, this is your plan, right? This is not PFM's plan. This is not my plan. This is your plan. And so whatever menu of options that we create, it needs to reflect your vision of what the township wants to be. Happy to answer some more questions regarding this. But in terms of timeline, what we propose to do is to start the engagement in the early spring in April at the latest, if not late March, and go through that process of the financial condition assessment, the operational review, and then coming up with a menu of options, kind of going through those 3 steps over the course of 5 months. And then be able to develop a plan. Again, it should be a document that gives you not only the options, but also the costing of which and the implementation strategy, and to give you that kind of overview of the plan and be able to deliver it by the end of August. And I think this timeline is important because you are right now in the 2021 fiscal year, and you will start your 2022 budget process in August, in the fall. So we want to give you what you need to do and what you need to have in order to start the 2022 budget process. And hence our timeline is from April through August, so that you have what you need as you enter the 2022 budget season. So that's kind of a very high level overview of our proposal of the 5-year plan. And I'm happy to answer some questions here and kind of clarify some of the points that I kind of brushed through in the last 10 minutes or so. I think you're muted.
I'll ask again, are there any questions for Vienne on this proposed study?
Bill, Tim here. I just wanted to, since I just wanted to chime in that the next, if the board's favorable to go forward with this, this will require a budget amendment, and we did put together a resolution subsequent to this motion with an exhibit which details the four-phase component of this. And the reason this project wouldn't start until April is that there's some homework that the staff needs to get together, and there's some work that we need to do on valuing some of our assets. So, but we wanted to get an early start on this because we're facing some pretty major fiscal headwinds in the next 5 years, and I think we want to have a good plan of action. So that's not a question, it's a comment and a clarification.
Yeah, I agree with Tim. I think this could provide us some nice inputs into our budget process going into the next few years, when we know we'd all like to add to the township's amenities, but we need to know, can we truly afford it? And what's that going to do with our operational budget, and what do we have to do? So
I should also point out, if you recall, we did a management study of the police department. One component of this, another component besides the fiscal analysis, they will be doing an operational analysis, kind of a management operational analysis of all of our other departments based on some of their other studies. They'll be doing some benchmarks and have some ideas on how our respective offices can do our jobs more efficiently, including mine.
I'll just add that, from various conversation with your township manager, we understand that you do have some kind of list in terms of what kind of investments you want, and we are aware of them. And the goal, again, is, what I consider a successful plan is not just to balance the budget. It will be very sad, and I do not recommend any municipality to say it is our mission to balance the budget. That is not a mission of local government, right? The mission of local government is to be able to provide quality services at an affordable price to its residents, and balancing the budget is a good outcome, but it shouldn't be the ultimate mission. And so I hope it's clear that, despite the name, a 5-year financial plan, that the ultimate goal is to find ways to create room so that you can make the investments that you want to make, and that you're able to continue not only kind of status quo, right, but to kind of continue improving what you offer to your residents at an affordable price. I heard earlier, in the public comment, someone mentioned, why are we paying taxes, right? That's a really good question. And I hope the plan will communicate that to your residents, is what they're paying for, why they're paying it, and what they will get, right? And not in the short term, but also in the long term through a 5-year horizon. So I just want to make that clear, given that I think that's an important component of this plan.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment. I think this is something that we definitely need to do. We need to move forward on. I don't think I'm prepared to do this. I don't think I'm prepared to take a vote on this thing tonight. I'm suggesting that we table this for this evening. And my reason being is, first of all, I need to digest the presentation for this evening, the stuff that I got in my packet, and also maybe I need to rethink some of the things that I'd like to have happen in the township, and maybe drop one of my personal items and take on Tony Patrick's water problem there, and maybe have to add some of that monies that we're talking about into something like getting better, stormwater sewer in that area. So that's I'm making that recommendation.
I mean, if you want more time, John, I don't think it can hurt. I think we've all been through the presentation. Thank you, Vivian. I think it's really helpful. And I think it's something we'll need, even if we forego something you might want. John, I still think it's great to have a roadmap. How each department's functioning, how efficient they are. I think that's important. I think the police audit was great. I think it helped them to tweak things, to make things better. And that's what this will do. But we could wait till you digest it.
I think you're right, Elaine, because I need to reprioritize the things that I'd like to have happen in the township, and it's not always the gingerbread. Maybe it's more the meat of the matter that I should be looking at instead of the gingerbread. And I need to reevaluate the things that I'd like to have happen. So that's why I'm asking to table this.
Okay, well, they don't start accumulating their inputs, which would be things like our priorities for a couple more months. Tim, how would that work if we delayed the vote on this for a month?
Am I still on?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Van, I'll ask you. I think we purposely pushed this off until April because we have our own homework to do. So I would think pushing this off a few more weeks and making sure that the board members have their questions answered. And John, I'd be happy to have you come down and have some quality discussions with me because I know this was kind of put before you quickly. So I want to make sure you have a comfort zone on this.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's fine with us, and understand and happy to answer any questions after tonight. If you have any, feel free to reach out to me. Tim has my contact information if there's anything I can help. But I think that makes sense, and we want you to be thoughtful about this. Like I said, the success of a plan is important. It depends on how engaged the board is and how engaged the township is, I think. So it's important that you understand what you're walking into and be able to kind of tell me, right? And say, this is what is really important to me. I want you to look into this. So.
All right, well, then we'll table a vote on this resolution until our February meeting. Okay?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Van.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to. All right. So. All right, so the hour is here, and we'll Jeff, do you want to give us a word with this?
Yes, we were given a plan on Friday. We were asked to have, well, about a month ago, we were asked to put this development on the agenda. We were given a plan on Friday. Ed Mullen is here representing Dr. Scott Rifkin and Michael Jacobs. They are the owners of Park House, and I'll hand it off to Ed and let him speak.
All right, thank you, Jeff. I guess my video isn't on, but in any event, we want to discuss a proposal for the Park House property, which is a 185-acre tract of ground on Black Rock Road, which is zoned open space conservation with the institutional overlay. That would permit, among other things, a CCRC at a density of 15 dwelling units per acre. We would hope that you would agree after our presentation tonight that we have a better idea and that you will authorize your consultants to work with us in preparing a future presentation for your consideration. Tonight, I'm going to have Dr. Scott Rifkin, the owner, and Gary Berman, who is our land design consultant, speak. And Mike Jacobs will supply any information we need. Mike works with Dr. Rifkin. So without further delay, here's Dr. Rifkin.
Hi there. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And thank you all in everybody at this meeting, both the elected officials and the staff and the community members that are here today. And I appreciate you taking the time. I want to clarify one thing. I don't own the nursing home at this point. I only own the adjacent land. I know it's all part of one plot and the such, but it's been separated out. A number of years ago, you all recall that at the time I owned nursing facilities, and we bought this property from the county, promised that we wouldn't develop it for at least 5 years, and we certainly didn't. And we've kept every promise we've made. A couple of years ago, I'm getting up into my upper ages. I have no kids in the business, and a group came in and bought our nursing centers, and I got out of that business. I'm not a developer. I've never developed a piece of property in my life. I live on a house that's in a house that somebody else developed, and I've never been a developer at any point. And I said that at the time I wasn't a developer, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with the land. And we'd come back to you all with our thoughts when and if we were ready to do something. and waited the 5 years. And here we are back and to have that sort of discussion with the community and the elected representatives and the community members. And we're happy to hear input. And Lisa, I heard your voice at the beginning of the meeting, and I appreciate you being here to give your input. So it is, and it's exactly what I promised the elected representatives at the time that we would do, come back 5 years later or more and have that discussion. So what I wanted to do is, look, we could have come back and said, we want 1 million units on this property. It's a lot of acreage, and we could try to maximize it. We haven't done that at all. And I think you're going to see that in a minute. I wanted to build a community that I could be really proud of. Now, I'm not going to ever develop anything else. This is going to be the one and only time. And I wanted to build something special where I would want to live, where you would want to live, where anybody would want to live. And we spoke to one land designer, and when we were doing this, and one of the first things he said to us is, can I reserve a unit? So what I want to go through is the concept. We wanted to build, you see a lot of communities built around golf courses, but I am really too unathletic to play golf effectively. I tried once and it was pretty embarrassing, but I am a bit of a junior farmer. I have a little bit of land where I live, and I've got some raised beds, and I love to grow vegetables in the summer. And I thought about, could we build a community around a farm property? We've had a farmer who farms a big chunk of this land, ever since we bought the property. And I believe he was there before we bought the property. And it's some of it's been used as farmland for years. And I said, could we build a community around a farm, around a working farm, and use that farm to be a community asset where kids could come and see animals and things growing, where members of the community could have little plots where they grew vegetables if they wanted to, where people that had horses could have their horses in a pasture and a barn to keep them in, and trails and places for them to ride their horses, where they could have walking trails and farm stands and all kinds of neat stuff. And we looked at a community in I think it was in Georgia, I'm sure it's in Georgia, called Serenbe, Serenbe. And if anybody wants to take a look, it's really worth looking at Serenbe. It is on a bigger piece of land than this, about 800 acres, but they have built around a working farm. And they've built in all kinds of community activities, and it's really just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And so we looked at that as sort of inspiration. And the other inspiration that I had is I love the little town of Williamsburg, Virginia. When my wife and I got married 36 years ago, I was a medical student and broke at the time, and we couldn't go anywhere fancy for our honeymoon. And I only had a week anyhow, and I had to be back at school. So we went to Williamsburg, and we stayed in the historic district, and they shot off cannons under our windows, and we just fell in love with the place. And then many years later, my daughter, who's now a veterinarian in Virginia, she went to school at William and Mary, so we had a chance to visit there all the time. And you'll see some resemblance to things in Williamsburg as we walk through the plan. But the idea really was to preserve as much of this as open use land as we could, as open land as we could, and make this available to not just the people that live in this community, but to the entire community, and have resources for the entire community. So I'm going to turn this over to Gary Berman, who's an old friend, and I asked him if he would help me with this project, and he's been nice enough to help us try to design this. We're here to get your input. We have not presented a plan to the county, to the township at this point. We have not asked for any approvals yet at this point. We're trying to get input, so what we do is something that everybody can be proud of and enjoy and be happy with down the road. Now, I know you can't make everybody happy with ever, even if you try. But the idea is to really build something that's an asset that most folks will look at and say, there are a lot of things that could have been done with this land, but this is really the best thing that could have been done with this land. So hopefully you'll feel that way after this presentation. And then I'm happy to take questions today. I'm happy to take questions tomorrow or the next day or the next day. And if If I'm allowed to, I'm happy to give out contact information for folks to reach out to us, to ask questions. I don't know what the rules for this meeting are. You know, we originally had intended to do lots of little meetings with elected officials, with community people, whatever. But then we were informed, and rightly so, that there were certain rules about working with the elected officials and not doing it in groups and all sorts of things that were new to us and not something from our own home communities that we're used to. So it was felt that this was the better way to present these ideas and get input. But I'd like to think of this as really a community input meeting and get your thoughts. So anyhow, let me turn it over to Gary, and then I'll jump in every now and then when Gary says something that I want to add a little bit of perspective to.
Great.
So
Thank you, Scott. Can everybody hear me?
Your picture is up there and my picture was.
Can everybody hear me? I just want to make sure my audio is working.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So consistent with Dr. Rifkin's vision, and I have to say, I've been in my background is I'm a civil engineer. I've been a land developer for close to 30 years. And this is something quite unique for me because when Scott came to me and told me what he wanted to do, normally when we take a piece of land and we contract with a national home builder, you'll see postage stamp lots everywhere. Everywhere where you see green would be lots. And that is not what Dr. Rifkin wanted. He wanted an ag type of community. And it was actually very exciting for myself and for the designers. And soon you'll see the illustrations for us to be part of this project. I'm gonna first start you at the main entrance, which is off of Route 113. You're gonna see two buildings, one to the left and one to the right. The building to the right at the main entrance is an equestrian center. It's designed to board horses, not a lot of them, but a few. And as the pastures mature, we'll see how many more we can take. It's also going to have a manager's residence that will offer horse riding lessons to the community and the surrounding neighborhood, possibly therapeutic type of lessons. And that will be part of the center point of this community. You'll see 4 pastures, which total, I think, 8 or 9 acres. And that is going to be an area that's just, you're going to see horses when you come in, and they're just going to be out grazing. The building to the left is either going to be a 80-unit bed and breakfast, or a 80-unit assisted living facility. When you see the architecture of that building, it will be very similar to the Williamsburg Inn, as Dr. Rifkin had said. That was part of his vision of what he wanted to see this community be. Straight ahead, you're going to see a barn. It's going to be the main barn. It's going to be the focal point, the centerpiece, if you will, of this whole community. It's going to be a gathering place for the community and a place to have events and meetings. And you also see elevations of that building as well. To the back left of the barn, the community barn, you're going to see small farmettes. Those farmettes are designed for the community.
Gary, is it able to use a pointer of some sort to show this?
I don't know that I have the access. I mean, I have a pointer on my computer. I just don't know if it's working.
There you go.
Right there. That's good. So go back to the barn. Yeah, you'll see the barn right there. And just behind it to the left, you'll see small farmettes. There'll be small gardens that'll be available to the community so they can have gardens and do what they'd like. And that's pretty much, as you drive in, all you're going to see are beautiful amenities and this beautiful barn. And when you see the architecture, it's a barn that you would envision out in open hills. It's going to be very natural looking, and you'll see it when we do the architecture. As you go up to the center of the community, upper center, that is going to be the community center. Down, if you bring the cursor down, that's going to be the community center. It's going to be a place where older folks or the elderly can meet and have different events. And there's also going to be possibly a young youth center with a tot lot. Behind it will be a pool. You're going to see an elevation of that. You're going to see the beauty and the time that we put into it to make it really a center point of the community. As you go up towards Old State Road, you're going to see a farmer's market. The concept there is that there's big
parcels of land to the left and to the right, totaling about 15 or 20 acres. They are going to continue to be farmed. We are looking to plant corn and produce and possibly hay for the horses so that we can actually grow and feed the horses and use that to help support the equestrian center. And as you follow the road down to the right, the lower right, just keep going all the way down, you will see an area that is multifamily. And as you go through that multifamily, you're going to see yellow buildings. Those yellow buildings, bring the cursor down. Those yellow buildings are our village center. And they're going to be neighborhood stores and shops on the first floor, a place like an avenue where you'd walk in and get a sandwich and an ice cream, and maybe there'd be a library or a local bank. And above that, on the second floor would be offices. To give you some facts, the acreage is roughly about 173 acres. There's about 142 acres of net usable land. Almost half of the land is going to be used for something other than residential uses. That's why you see so much green here. It's not a postage stamp subdivision. It's not a big national home builder subdivision. It's going to be a very quiet, quaint community. Why don't we go to the next screen? That is the entrance. So as I discussed, to the right, you're going to see the equestrian center. You'll see horses. You'll see open fields and pastures. To the left, you're going to see a building, and the architecture is very similar to the Williamsburg Inn. And straight ahead, what you'll see, and this will be the focal point, the centerpiece, if you will, of the community, is going to be the main barn with an arcade and another off building to the left of it. As you look, you don't see any residential housing. You drive in, and it's a very, very agricultural type of entrance that just shows the lifestyle that Dr. Rifkin was trying to accomplish. Why don't we go to the next slide? This is the center of the community. What you'll see, this is the community center. You'll see the swimming pool in the back. You'll see the tot lot to the right. There's going to, all the activities for the community will take place in this facility. And if you actually look to the upper right, you will see the farmers market. And if you look all the way to the left, you'll see the cornfields, and you'll see a little bit all the way to the right. All that's going to be continued corn, hay, and other types of produce that can be brought into this farm stand to market to the community and to the town. And it's just not to the folks. It's not just what we're harvesting here, but other folks can bring produce in as well. And it's just a different type of marketing and for a farm stand, as opposed to going to Wegmans and just picking something out of a bin. That's all that I have there. If you can go to the next illustration, this is the Village Center. As you can see, it's a very Main Street Avenue type of view. The first floor will all be just local shops, bakeries, hair salons, maybe a local bank where the cupola is, or a library of some sort. And the upper floor, the second floors would all be offices. So if you wanted to have a small office and go downstairs and get a sandwich, that's what this is designed to do.
And let me make a little comment on this look. For anybody who's been in Williamsburg, and it's just a gorgeous place. This is Merchant Square at Williamsburg. It looks almost identical to Merchant Square. The building on the right is the campus bookstore for William and Mary. If you look on that corner, it's almost identical. And I asked Gary to steal that look and bring that into this. And the idea is to have a little walking, shopping, little shops. It won't be big box. It won't be big national chains. The idea is to have little local, type shops in this area. And there's also a willingness by us to build a library or do other things if there's an interest that the community wants. So we certainly can do those sorts of things. Gary, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Scott, we can go back to the site plan if you'd like.
Talk a little bit, Gary, talk a little bit about the trails the horse.
So around the perimeter of the
walking
property
trails.
are walking trails, possibly horse trails, and through the center of the property where there's a stream and environmentally sensitive areas, there are trails as well. Like I said, there's 3.6 miles of trails that the community and the surrounding community can go through and enjoy what we've created here. And Scott, I don't know if this is if people want to ask questions. I mean, this is very conceptual, but
Quick thought, and I don't want to interrupt. I just thought that maybe Eric, and not to put Eric on the spot, he's our solicitor for tonight, can tee up what this property is mapped for now and where we would go, just to give everybody on the call context for where we need to go and what is asking to be done.
Sure. So it can be used for, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So it can be used for institutional uses, municipal and institutional uses right now. To look at kind of most dense possibilities would be a university hospital, or a center that had 15 units per acre is what it could have. So at 175 acres, 50% has to be open space. That's 87.5 developable acres here. So at 15 units per acre, they could have over 1,300 units and buildings up to 70 feet tall. Yeah, you're on mute, Helene.
I was going to say 70 feet tall because it's institutional.
Correct. Yep. So that's current zoning allows that to happen. And obviously they'd have to go through conditional use process and go through the whole process to get approved by the board and go through that. But for, residential care or personal care homes, that would be permitted by your zoning ordinance right now.
Thank you, Eric. I think before we open this up to public comments, and the public comment time is going to be comments, not questions, but I want the supervisors to be able to exhaust all their questions and comments. So I'll just start with one thing I noticed right off the bat. I don't hate the plan, and I like the drawings that we had of the various buildings. I think it looks nice. But as I look at the roads that surround this property, there are a tremendous amount of infrastructure upgrades that need to be done to the roads that would absolutely be required if we allowed any development here, if we made any kind of zoning change and allowed any kind of development. One of the things is where Route 113 comes in across the bridge there. We've talked about putting a traffic circle in there where 2nd Avenue, Drabillis, and Route 113 come together. Old State needs to be widened. So just all of these things. I know that this plan wasn't intended to get into that kind of detail, but just understand, and all the infrastructure we have to be put in place. So we've got a long way to go here. This has to go through our planning commissioner, and our planning commission has to go through all of our consultants and the zoning hearing board. So, but
Supervisor Starling, we've already engaged a traffic engineer and we've already started the process. Obviously, we need to sort of understand what our traffic count's going to be, both during peak and daily, but we can't get that far until we sort of fine tune the concept and understand what the count's going to be as far as traffic in and traffic out. So we do have somebody on board, and we do understand the improvements that have to be made to the surrounding roads.
Yeah, and I have a question about the retail center down in the bottom right-hand corner of the drawing. I assume that's the yellow buildings there.
Yes, sir.
We saw the drawing of. The brown spaces around there, is that residential, or is that more, you can go back to the floor plan there. Is that all residential there, or is that more retail space around there?
It's multifamily that'll have its own community center as if you go counterclockwise up to the top. I guess that's clockwise, but you can go, just keep going. You'll see a small yellow building with a pool, but all of this is multifamily.
Okay.
And quick question, Bill, I'm sorry, did you have other things?
Nope, I'm all done. Go ahead, Helene.
When Eric mentioned there could be 1,300 units, how many does this plan, it's hard to tell, and maybe you don't even have a count. It's pretty open plan.
So I'll be pretty honest. Dr. Rifkin was more interested in the amenities of this community and getting the lifestyle that he wanted. We haven't sat down and actually fine-tuned the density count. I can tell you we're planning on putting some larger single-family homes, some smaller single-family homes, some townhomes, and the multifamily. So there's price points for everyone to enter into this community. But we haven't actually sat down and laid out, as we speak, we haven't laid out lots. We haven't done that yet. Dr. Rifkin, being a doctor, not a developer, was more interested in doing what you see in front of you than the unit count. And that's where,
But I will say that I don't think we're going to be anywhere near that 1,200 number.
Nowhere near it. Scott, you're not going to be anywhere near it.
Okay.
And I have another question, top right, and this might be a question for Jeff. Top right corner that's white, is that, whose property is that? Is that county, township? I mean, obviously it wasn't sold to you, Dr. Rifkin.
It is owned by the entity that Dr. Rifkin runs. I don't know the legal name of it off the top of my head, but that, and if you look at the property that's to the left of the pool building that says additional farm fields up here in sort of the upper right third, yeah, right there. Those are both also owned by Dr. Rifkin's organization. I think
Jeff,
that
Jeff, we should check on that because I got to be honest, I don't think they are. I could be wrong. If they belong to me, I'm happy to include them in the plan, but for some reason.
Well, part of the issue, I think, from my understanding, again, this is anecdotal, the property across the street from the church at Old State and Jaeger was purchased differently was purchased differently originally by the county, and so it actually is deed restricted from development. That's just my understanding. I have not looked at the title. I've not looked at the deed. But as we move this process forward, Dr. Rifkin, Helene, I think that's something that we do need to finalize.
And look, we'd love to include that piece on Jaeger Road in the plan if there was a way to do it. If for some reason I didn't think that I had the right to do it, but I'm happy to have that conversation. And if it's your land and you want us to include it, we're happy to talk about it. I mean, it would make the property a little bit more easy to lay out, truthfully.
And then all of the open space you have there, that would be maintained by the HOA or?
Yep. And in fact, we did, and Gary may want to talk about it. One of the things we presented was the idea of having a horse barn and a paddock and places where people could keep their horses. And we got the great question back, and I don't remember exactly who it was, but somebody on amongst you guys was, well, does it really work economically to maintain long-term? And so Gary did a whole bunch of homework on that. And Gary, you want to talk about that?
Sure. One of the biggest expenses is supervising the equestrian center. And what we came up with is there's not enough boarded horses there to really support and the overhead of someone working there. So we came up with the concept of a couple or two people residing on the right side of the equestrian center where they may have their own horse, take care of the other horses to reduce our overhead. And we did go through and get some numbers, and it will self-support itself with that
model,
that condition of someone actually residing there, having board in exchange for overseeing the horses and giving lessons and things like that. So that was our solution, Scott, to making the numbers work.
That's great. And I think that was my question when I originally saw these. I did talk to Joe Bresnan about it because I was concerned, and we openly spoke about that, and it's supporting itself past a few years. So
well, all of this for itself, and part of what we'll come back to you with, I'm sure, is a business plan around those services.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't ask for too high of a homeowner's fee, but some of these things will generate revenue, including the farm.
Okay,
Oh, go ahead, Lori.
No, are you done, Helene?
I just had one other question. The pool, would that be open to people joining or just for the community? Or I'm sure the detail that maybe you haven't drilled down to that yet.
Yeah, we haven't gotten that far yet, but you know, obviously it's open for discussion, Scott, and you know, it's up to, you know, to you, Scott.
Gary, you had an interesting observation about community pools that you ought to repeat here.
So it's interesting. In all the developments that I have done, we first started off with very large pools, and what we found is nobody uses them. They like to have them, but they become a landscaping feature. And everybody wants to say, you know, we can go swimming, there's a pool in the community, but very rarely do people use them. And so what we found in our various developments as we started shrinking the size of the pool, because they just don't get used that much, and it becomes a big maintenance expense. So it may be an option to open it up to the surrounding community. We'd have to talk about it and how that would work. But we just find that having large pools just become landscaping features. They really aren't used as much as you would think.
Go ahead, Lori, and I have another question after you too.
Yeah, but I have a whole bunch.
Go ahead.
You know, I'm the horse person on the barn or on the board, and I have several questions. How many acres did you say would be for paddocks for the horses?
So right now we have roughly 7 acres that we set aside for 4 paddocks. So, you know, if it's an acre and a half for a horse, you're not going to have 30 horses here. There's probably going to be 6 to 8 horses. Early on, we're going to have a very small amount of horses until the paddocks mature and the grass matures. We also may, I guess they call it a dry paddock. In talking to some folks, we may convert one of them to a dry paddock, which would allow additional horses to enter into those paddocks. And it would require obviously additional feed and things like that. But we're not there yet. We're going to start it off small and just grow it as it allows.
Okay, 7 acres. It's last time I talked to the ag people, it's 2 acres per horse. You can stretch that by doing rotational grazing, but you need to have some sort of system where it's set up where it's relatively easy for the people to do rotational grazing. Another issue I have is that once you make infrastructure changes on 113, that is a busy road as it is now. And it makes me a little nervous to have the stable right on the road with the trails right on the road. Horses are big, crazy animals. They have minds of their own and they're spooky. And I would hate to see one get loose and spook in front of a car on 113 because the result is bad.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I know the illustration shows horses on 113, but that's purely for illustration. It's not real. I've had other people tell me the same thing that you're telling me. And so the exits for the horses will be out the rear, and the pastures are all secluded off to the right, way off of 113. So I apologize for the horses that are being shown on 113 and the trail along 113. The illustrator took some liberties not being a horse person.
And I understand that. What I'm kind of moving toward is I would prefer to see the barn farther away from the road and have the pastures out front. I would prefer to see the trails more interior. The other question I have is you said in the back is possibly growing hay for the horses. How many acres was that again for possibly growing hay?
Acres total right now.
Sorry, I'm
Gary, say that again.
I'm sorry.
Say the number of acres again because I missed it.
There's 15 acres in the 2 parcels between 3 and 4. And though we're not looking, you know, obviously it would be nice to be able to grow the hay. I don't know if it's enough acres, but obviously if not, we'll import the hay from another source. But we did like the concept of being able to grow what we need within the community. It may not be enough, so we may have to supplement it.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I would love to grow my own hay too, but we're bad at it. And I can tell you that 15 acres isn't going to be enough. I get roughly 13 tons of hay for my 2 horses per year. And I don't know that you're going to be able to get that many tons of hay off of that piece, but you know, importing from somewhere else. And and again, the horse facility, you're gonna have to figure out exactly what it's going to be doing there, because you're gonna need specialized people. If you're gonna do therapeutic riding, you're gonna need other facilities like an indoor arena for those kinds of things. Maybe not for riding lessons, but for therapeutic riding, you will. You need qualified people. It's a 24/7 job, and it's tough. And most of the time people don't get paid enough. And so I'm in conflict because I'm a horse person and I would love to see it, but I also know what the downside is. And I just want a lot more thought put into that.
So, and I agree with you, and we have to do it the right way. I would imagine if we proceed down the path on doing this, we put together a committee that includes experts and some community folks to help us plan this. I mean, what we've got out here is a concept. That doesn't mean we can't move a field to the right or the left or back, or change the amount of apportionment to less corn and more hay, or, you know, all those things. And we want to do it right, because we don't want to, you know, my daughter is a vet. She just graduated at Penn, actually, from their vet school. And the one animal that scares her, and she says it very bluntly, is horses. That it's the only animal she's ever dealt with and worked with that are so unpredictable that you got to be very careful. So we want to do this right, and we'll want your input, and we'll want other members of the community to do input, because as we do this, let's do it the right way.
Thank you.
Bill, I think you're on mute.
Do we have any more questions from the Board of Supervisors?
Nope.
Oh, I have a quick question, and it's something that somebody chatted, and I also had brought it up, so I want to share it with them as well, because I do live right across the street from this development, and I'm over there almost every day with my dogs. And I've mentioned this to Dr. Rifkin before, and I liked his answer, so I want to make sure everybody hears it. Look, there's a lot of animals over there, great wildlife, fox, crane, deer. It's just beautiful. So one of the questions that came up was, how are we preserving that? How much property is going to be kept natural? Like, there's the stream that runs through it that's very wooded. That's where most of the animals are. I want you to talk about that and how you're keeping some of the natural landscape.
Sure. And Gary should comment on this as well. The idea is to leave as much of that central area as natural as we can. I mean, the idea is not to mess with it intentionally. I'm a real animal nut. My wife's a real animal person. And Gary, you might want to comment on this more, but the idea was to preserve that so that when people walk through trails, hopefully hooking up to trails elsewhere in the community, because I know you've looked at the community-wide trail, that they get just a beautiful walk. That's the idea.
Let me just add to it that the stream is going to be protected, and the stream slopes are all protected. The Army Corps of Engineers, whoever oversees wetlands, isn't going to allow us to get anywhere near it. And they're not going to allow us to disturb it anyway. So it's all going to remain as it is, up to a point where we're outside of the steep slope and the protected area of the stream. We're not going to be able to do anything with it except enhance it.
Right.
I feel like I hogged a lot of the time. John or Al, do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, I only have one question. Somebody, if you would please give me a guesstimate. I know you don't have a number, but give me a guesstimate as to how many residents you're putting in there.
Gary, what's your thought?
So my thought is probably 500 to 600 residences. Most of them are multifamily. Most of that number is going to be down below there, and I'm counting each one of those units as a residence. So there might be a couple hundred units in the rest of the area, as opposed to the 12 or 1500 units, that would be allowed, I guess, in a CCRC or something. So it's a very small percentage of what's being permitted, but probably 2/3 of that number I gave you is right where your arrow is.
That's all that I have.
I have I'm sorry, I have a million other questions, but when we originally saw these plans, you had mentioned about something that would go with Park House. It was like a rehab. Is that still considered?
Well, it's consideration for the building, Gary, you want to, I guess that's building 12. But talk about your
Yeah,
plans now.
so Scott, that's either a bed and breakfast or assisted living or whatever, the market, will support. And we had also talked about in the multifamily, possibly, cross-pollinating some of the medical services that they have in that nursing care facility with the multifamily. I think you had talked about that as well, but we haven't gotten that far.
It'd be nice to have the ability for somebody to live near, in the community where the husband or the wife is in the community and their spouse is in the nursing facility, and they've got the ability to visit and have that sort of continuity. It's a nice thing to have. We really want this community to be great for young parents and kids, but to also be great for seniors. And so a lot of what our thinking has been about is how do we make this livable for everybody so that little kids can see seniors and everybody's in the same world together.
I have a question. Looking at the bottom right of the, what is that again?
So those are multifamily 3 or 4 story buildings with its own community center and an amenity center, which is sort of right where that arrow is. And that leads right into the village center. So everybody that lives in that area will be able to walk and get a sandwich or buy a book or whatever they want to do there, get their hair done, as well as the trails and the road system lead all to that village center as well.
So is your proposal condos or is your proposal apartments?
Scott, I don't know that we've gotten that far.
No, but that's open to discussion.
So that's where, so the density there that's a significant density, right? I mean, it's more than the other stuff up there, up top.
But much more. We try to keep it as close to the nursing home in the 9-story building as we could, so that it sort of ties together and everything else is very lightly developed.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right. Anything more from the board? All right, I promised a period of public comment. And so I think we're going to open it up. If you'd like to raise your hand, same rules as before, name, street address, and then try to keep it to 3 minutes.
Do you want us to answer to questions or just public comment without us responding?
I think without you responding for now, but I want you to hear the questions if people have them. The thing is, I don't know that there's enough here that you can answer about. Like I said, there's a lot of things that are not on this that obviously will have to be there, like traffic improvements and stuff like that, which I think potentially may move some of your buildings around a little bit. So I'm wary that you can answer if you would like to, but I don't think you're obligated to. I'll put it that way.
Sure. But let me make one little comment about community comment. We really want the community input.
Sure.
We really want to hear what people are concerned about, what they'd see differently. I mean, this is the vision that comes out of Gary and my heads that doesn't make it the exact right thing to do. So I think what we presented is the general concept, and we are wide open to thoughts and ideas.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started and we'll see how it goes. All right.
First person with their hand up was Ray Emmerich.
It's Ray Emmerich. I live at 1520 Yeager Road. And right where your little cursor is, if you walk straight out onto the road, that's where I live. So what you're doing is you're taking farm pasture and open space that everyone wants in this county and in fact in this country, and you're taking it all away from us. You've got wildlife galore over there. You have at least 40 deer. I've tracked them for 16 years. You have the blue heron over there. You have the foxes. If you think that little sliver of land that you guys are leaving by the creek, because yes, you can't touch it. You can't go anywhere near that thing. Those apartments are going to be right across the street from my house. Anywhere where retail is brought in, crime is brought in. Like I said, and as they run from the police, as they pull up there, where are they going to run to? They're going to run right to my house. This is the worst plan I've ever seen. Open space should be open space. We already had it taken from us from the county once. I'm not going to let it happen again. You can unmute me now before I start cursing.
Right. I would just point out the township does not own this land. So it's not truly open space. It's just undeveloped land at this point. So anyway.
Ryan Steckel. Name and address, please.
Is this me? This is Ron
Yes.
Steckel.
Okay, your name comes up as Ryan.
Second Avenue.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
My name is Ron Steckel. I live at 1214 Second Avenue on the corner of Old State. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Please continue.
Okay. I did not really have, I'm not sure how to work this Zoom that well. So if I had my hand up, I apologize. But while I'm on, since I live on the corner, does the plan incorporate the lot that I live on, or will that be remaining?
I'll try to, not sure where you're exactly where. Can somebody use the pointer and tell us where?
Yeah. Yep, that's it. Right at the corner of Old State and Second Avenue.
Mr. Steckel, no, this plan does not incorporate your property. It stops at their property line.
Okay. And what are these brown things? Are they tracks? Are they riding paths?
Those are tracts of land where homes and people will live. Homes we built and people will live.
I see. Okay.
And those would be the larger single-family houses right there.
Right where they'll be the larger ones that are right where the cursor is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steckel.
Yeah.
Patrick Canning. Name and address, please.
Yeah, Pat Canning at 1515 Jaeger. Can you hear me?
Yes, please continue.
Yeah, I'm a couple houses down from Ray, and right on the bend of Jaeger Road. So, you know, I certainly respect the right of the owner to develop this land. I would ask that the owner and the board respect the needs and concerns of the residents that live adjacent to this property. The problem I have with the current plan is it seems that there was given consideration to buffer some of the adjacent areas, but not all, and certainly not along Trapp and Jaeger Roads, where the Crossroads Village and apartments are due to be built. I'm very concerned about the possible intrusive lighting from the parking lots, the noise, the loss of privacy. You know, my view is the same as Ray's, which is the pasture, the water tower. And one of the reasons why I moved here in the first place was because of that. I would strongly oppose to any construction of rental units. My experience as a postmaster, it's fine when they're shiny and new, but within a few years they get beat up, the rents come down and the crime goes up. They are not family oriented. And as an example, I asked you to look at the mess in Phoenixville. The last time I went down there for dinner, all I saw was a bunch of drunk kids. It's not family friendly. So that's my fear of this plan, and specifically the Crossroads Village section. I would ask that you eliminate the multifamily and consider just I understand, Doctor, your vision of the village center, but I would ask that you remove that multifamily and maybe put some more farmland in that area to give us a buffer also. And I also heard you say at the beginning, Doctor, that you really weren't interested in a golf course. But I just have to tell you that I have to say, I'm sorry, but this township does not have a public golf course, and this land is perfect for it. There's still be plenty of room to do what you want to do, which is the barn and the equestrian center, the community gardens. This is a lot of land. A golf course might take 125 acres of it, and that's a top-notch public golf course. That's all. Thank you.
So let me make one quick comment. We'd love to meet with you. Everybody who's got concerns, particularly I'm hearing from the folks that live on Yeager Road, we're happy to sit and talk and see what we can do to work with you. Probably can't build a golf course because I don't think we'd have enough left to develop the rest of the space. And you'd have to personally agree to promise to teach me how to play golf. But I'm happy to sit down, and Gary's happy to sit down and have those conversations with folks who feel that they're most affected by this.
Can you still hear us?
Yes,
Yeah.
Ms. Cannon, we can.
Hi, so this is Pam Canning. I'm Pat's wife at 1515 Yeager. And I'll take my 3 minutes now, if that's okay, with the supervisors. Yeah, we appreciate that, Dr. Rifkin. If we could actually sit down and have a talk. To Pat's point regarding the multifamily section, one option there, if a golf course is not going to be an option for us, we would ask if there is a way that we can reconfigure the 200 acres that have been mapped here to better address the needs of the immediately adjacent neighbors and where that density exists versus where there are no neighbors. And maybe you could put those multifamily units, where there are no neighbors or adjacent properties to them, as an example. So we do appreciate the opportunity to sit down and meet with you, and we would take you up on that.
Sure. And if it's okay with folks, and you all have to let me know, I'm happy to give out an email address and set up those conversations. We had actually wanted to do very small groups of folks around the perimeter of the project before, but we couldn't figure out a real way to make that happen. So this is a good way to reach out.
Hey, Pam and Pat, and that's exactly why I asked about that top right corner, because it's across the street from the movie church, which wouldn't really affect, it would affect the person across State Road, but it would affect less people if he could use that top right corner.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, I don't know that that's available, but that was the aim of that question, is to move some of that density away from people on Yeager.
Right. And my last question is, do you plan to raise Park House completely and rebuild something?
No, it's unfortunate. I don't own Park House, the nursing home, anymore. That area in white that you see is not part of this parcel. That's owned by another group.
Gotcha.
The problem with Park House, A, it's kind of a historical property, but B, some of it really could be torn down and redone into a much more modern facility, but it's not something I have under my control.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wessler?
Hi, how are you?
Hello. Name and address, please.
My name is John Wessler. I'm at 180 Country Ridge Drive.
Thank you. Please make your comment.
Yeah, so I mean, really right now I'm almost sick to my stomach. Spent a lot of years working hard to be able to afford a home here, where I moved in for open space, to be able to see open space, get to look out my windows and see that open space, and being working home right now. I'm real nervous that this is going to come in and cause problems, especially with, the multifamily units. I certainly, I hear the comments of people wanting them, move to a different part. I frankly wouldn't want to move if they're going to be moved anywhere, because they become closer to where I'm at. So again, you're going to have people and neighbors all around that would have an objection to where it's going to go. So the bottom line is, for me, I wouldn't want multifamily homes in there. Right now, it's currently zoned as open space institutional. I understand we talk about the 1,500 units, but they also talk about the 250-foot setbacks. From my understanding, I could be wrong, but I was told there's 250-foot setbacks and berms that were to be put up if there was anything that was going to be developed. So looking at the community center that was up at the Old State Road there, you have, I think the building, that building, I mean, that looks like it's 250 feet, but the farm stand certainly isn't 250 feet. I don't see any berms up there, any trees put up there that's going to kind of block the view. So I'm really concerned about that there. So I'd love to meet with Dr. Rifkin too, because again, like I'm sitting here, I thought this was going to be my retirement home, and now I'm afraid I have to sell my house. I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm like starting to look for other homes, because this is not what I bought the house for when I came into Upper Providence Township 11 years. I went to the township building and I researched it, and I found out that it was open space. I'm like, perfect, that's where I want to be. Boom, I'm moving in. I put roots down, and now all of a sudden I feel like I'm going to have to move. So I don't know where like it comes in to be allowing, like, you have institutional zone. So institutional, it's one thing. Now you're opening this up to anybody coming in here. And again, in multifamily homes, it's just not, it's not what I plan on being. Noise, light, noise, pollution, light pollution, where you have something about a theater and a tot center. My house is right behind there. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear, my family. I want to be able to spend time with my family and hear them ourselves. And I don't hear everybody back there screaming. It's just not what I bought my house for. And now I feel like I'm going to lose value to my house too. I don't understand, just a few years ago that the supervisors put this, and they put the restrictions for 10% buildings, 35% impervious improvements, 250-foot setbacks, berms. This current proposal doesn't have any of that there. I also, if this hasn't already been approved, I have a major concern. Why would there be on this parcel a mortgage out for $1 billion already? That's unless I'm wrong, but I could be wrong. That's already been taken out. That's in the county deed records. I'm like I said, I'm beyond myself right now of how this is going to happen, and how we can take away the last parcel of land that's open space for our community to be taken away and developed again. We have enough development going on. Again, no disrespect to Dr. Rifkin or anybody on there. I mean, it looks nice. I would rather it to be, bigger homes and less traffic, because it's going to have certain amount of traffic that's coming on the Old State, certain amount of traffic coming down my house. Again, I feel like I'm going to have to move and, start putting my house on the market as it comes right now. I'm frankly disgusted. What's the timeline for something like this to happen as well?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
If I may. My name is Jeff Grace. I'm the Director of Planning and Zoning for the township. This is this is the first time we've seen this plan. There's no approvals looking tonight. There's no actual applications filed tonight. In my mind, the next step, if the board wanted to go that way, would be looking at the zoning to determine how we could write. Obviously, for something like this, we would have to write new zoning language. That can take months, if not longer, to work out. And obviously, that's a good portion of that is a public process where the audience would be informed, the neighbors would be informed when we're going to be talking about it. I hesitate to put a timeline on it, because if I say 2 years, then suddenly everybody's like, okay, well, where are we at in 2 years? And I from a township's perspective, it's a long time for this, not decades, but it's a good amount of time, because there's a lot of work to do on something like this.
And Jeff, I will second what you said. I mean, as we said, this is purely conceptual. And what we would like to do after this is meet and talk with neighbors and other people, and then consult with the township consultants and work towards coming up with what ultimately this might look like, and then get into the ordinance. And if we get to the ordinance, then get into land development and subdivision, we're easily 3 or 4 years away.
And I do want to point out one other thing. I mean, we purposely came to this meeting to get the kind of input that you're giving us. One of the games that I understand developers play is they'll come in and say, we want to put 1,500 units on a property like this. And then they never really expected to do that. They figured they'd compromise down to something a lot less. So what we really wanted to do is just come and tell you some ideas of what we thought would be a good idea for the property, and listen to input. And like I mentioned before, we really do want to meet with anybody who wants to sit down and talk about it, and where we can find ways. I mean, the space restrictions to it, but where we can find ways to make people comfortable, we want to do that.
Dr. Rifkin, I would ask again too, part of like I'm assuming this is going to get to a point where there's, I can only, can't fight City Hall, right? I mean, at the end of the day, this is probably something that's going to be inevitable. And I'd love to sit down with you to talk, because you talked about that property in the back there, because I live across from that one property was potential farmland. And again, my request would be to sit down and talk to you about that. Because again, I don't want anything, right, where out my window where I have to look at something every day. Because again, at the end of the day, I literally just got on Remax today and started looking for new houses, because like I said, this is not what I bought my house for, and it's not what I planned on. So if ultimately, if I have to move, I have to move. But I really didn't want to. My family wanted to put roots down here. We like our house, and that's not what I wanted to do. But that's why I did the research on the house too. But again, like I said, this is not what I was planning on having to do. It puts me in a bad way, puts my family in a bad way, and puts a lot of other people in the community in a bad way too. So my 2 cents, I'd love to sit down and meet with you, but that's up to you.
No, we're happy to meet with you. And before the meeting ends, if we have a permit, the supervisors.
Dr. Rifkin, if I may,
Dr.
Rifkin, if I may, we have 15 people that are lined up to speak.
Sure.
And we have
Thank you for your time.
For my supervisors, I want to get the agenda moving along a little bit. So if we can, I'm going to move to the next person.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Dr. Rifkin, if you want to put your email address in the chat and people can copy it out of there, that'd be fine. Thank you.
That's fine. We'll probably do it through Mike, who's on the call with us. So we'll set up the meetings.
Norman Davenport.
Mike, why don't you put your email address up there?
Hi, good evening. This is me and my wife, Rachel Davenport here. Our address is 100 Bennington Road. We live right down Jabelbus in the Providence, Riverside of Providence development. So 35 homes in our development, I believe is 82 in the development next to ours. Right now, it takes us considerable time just to get out of Jabelbus onto Black Rock Road 113 because of the oncoming traffic out of the Phoenixville area heading towards Black Rock Road to 29. If we don't get there by 6:30 in the morning, we could wait through 3 traffic lights just to cross 29 or get 29 over to 422. With the number of homes or residences being planned in this development, it would almost force us to have to leave. We would not be able to leave 30 minutes earlier to get to work, just trying to get through the traffic. I'm looking at possibly 10 exits or ingress or egress routes concerning this development, but they all really pour into the same 3 streets, 113, Old State Road, or right off of Yeager Road, going right into Black Rock Road. I don't know how you could possibly widen all of those streets around this development to accommodate this traffic. That's a major problem. And that's our concern, the traffic.
I can answer that. Obviously, we're going to be hiring traffic consultants, and they're going to be doing studies using PennDOT current traffic counts and the additional traffic counts that are going to be added as a result of this development. And then obviously improvements to the roads, maybe light timing, things will be adjusted so that it doesn't bottleneck. I'm not a traffic engineer, but we are going to have experts look into your concerns, and we'll be able to get back to you as we develop this property.
Thank you. Lisa Mossy?
Yeah, hi, Lisa Mossy, 311 Montgomery Avenue, Oaks. Yeah, Jeff, I actually have a question for you. How many units of multifamily are approved for the township right now that haven't been started to be built yet? I know there's like 600 behind Wegmans. Do you have the ballpark on that?
585 are for Provincetown Center apartments. The number for the Yerkes Station apartments is in around 200. I don't know the exact number. Those are the only 2 multifamily approved at this point.
Okay, so basically, if this plan was to be approved, we'd be talking about 1,000 apartment units of people who are indigent, don't really put down roots in this township, and come and go as they please. I just want to go on record as saying I hate this plan with the intensity of 1,000 white hot suns. This property was never meant to be developed at all. So we are going from a planned 0 residents to adding 500, 600 residents? We don't know yet because we haven't gotten that far with it. So, you know, I just want to quote here from the Montgomery County Open Space Plan. And it says, the Upper Schuylkill Valley Park is bordered and buffered from surrounding development by farmlands belonging to the Montgomery County Geriatric Center. Development of any of these lands would impact the scenic views and severely limit the park's options for additional open space. These farm fields should be preserved. That's from Montgomery County's plan before they sold the space. All right. I would also like to bring up to the supervisors that this is 100% within your control. And I'm going to quote Josh Shapiro on the sale of this property. If Mid-Atlantic ever wishes to develop the land surrounding Park House, they will require the approval of Upper Providence. Upper Providence controls the zoning around Park House, not the county and not Mid-Atlantic. The binding terms of this deal provide even greater protection and public access than even what Upper Providence zoning allows for, Shapiro said. All roads lead back to Upper Providence. So whatever happens with this land, doesn't matter what, the only people that have control over what happens with this land is the Board of Supervisors. That this is going to require a zoning change, and it's going to be a big zoning change. And that is entirely within the township supervisor's purview. And that's all I have to say. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Nancy Peters. Ms. Peters?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Peters, please name and address.
Nancy Peters on 273 Old State Road.
Thank you very much. Your comment, please.
Yeah, we live on Old State Road and we look over this property, and it would be an outrage to have that many dwellings and that many people and residences separate on this property, especially apartments. This township does not need another apartment. I'm also a realtor, and I can tell you that you don't need more apartments. I'm hoping that the zoning change won't happen to have this many people in it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Ms. Peters.
Hey, Jeff, this is Mike Jacobs. I put my email address in the Q&A. Hopefully folks can see it. I just wanted to let everybody know I did that.
They can also email me and I can forward questions on. I prefer to see what some of the questions are anyway, but we'll tackle that later.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Michael Kajak, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that.
It's Michael Kajak.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
104 Bennington Road. Majority of my questions were answered, but things along 113 really do not support this type of endeavor. And not to mention the intersection of Drivable Bis and 113, but the single lane bridge that has been crumbling before our eyes. Whose responsibility would it be to restore and update the Route 113? Would it be based on the state route and PennDOT, or would it be based on taxpayer dollars from the local community, or what would be the builder development fees associated with bringing potentially?
The short answer is that if it's an impact from new development, the developer would be paying for those associated costs. We also have a traffic improvement plan, the Township and Act 209 plan, that takes fees from development like this and applies it to identified properties. I think it's on the website. If not, I can certainly get it to you. What those improvements are for, like second revivalist and the one lane bridge. I don't want to belabor tonight with specifics, but generally we understand those from a township's perspective. We understand those improvements are needed, and we're looking to have developers pay for them, not residents, not taxpayers, not the county, things like that.
When it comes to further zoning and hearing board directions with this project, I'm understanding that we would be notified of the next meeting, as I'm within 100 yards of this property, as are majority of the individuals that are speaking here. When
it comes time to have a zoning hearing, you would be specifically notified if you're within, I think, 500 feet is the township policy of a parcel, of an edge of the parcel, and you probably are there on Bennington. If not, some of your neighbors would get it, and I'm sure you'd hear about it. If they have another meeting like this, we're not going to notify every single time they come to a meeting like this. If you would like to send me an email, I can collect those, and I tend to, there's a couple people that are going to come up speaking in a little bit that know I would notify. I'll notify people if they've asked me to let them know that there's a meeting coming that the subject would be on.
Okay. My next two statements or questions are primarily for Dr. Rifkin. There's a strong belief that there are potter fields on this property, which are former grave sites to the Quakers and Mennonites. Are there any plans on doing any extensive research, surveying, and or if there are any areas that are dug up and any human remains are found, will there be any proper measures taken to preserve those areas and sites?
So that's the first I've been asked that, and the first anybody has said that to us. We'll certainly look at that issue and figure out what needs to be done. We certainly don't want to disrespect any human being who was buried on that site.
Okay. And my last question is,
By the way, if you have any information on that, please forward it to us.
Certainly. I live within 100 yards of this location and personally have seen hundreds of bald eagles. I've seen a few of the bog turtles, which are considered an endangered species. Although recently the bald eagles are no longer an endangered species due to decades of measures to help prevent and restore populations since the 40s, are there any plans to making sure any and all federal laws are followed and respected, as there's extensive federal laws as the Eagle Act, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, the Lacey Act, and there's potentially other protection orders in place by the Upper Providence Township?
Sure. I am way too fat to violate federal law and go to jail and wear one of those big orange jumpsuits. So we obviously want to be very careful. I would imagine Gary, as he's doing his site planning and working with the engineers and working with the Corps of Engineers, is going to look at those issues. Is that a fair statement, Gary?
Absolutely, Scott. As part of our consulting team, we're going to be hiring environmentalists and wetlands experts who will delineate and identify any protected land or species that may be living there. And it'll all be identified. It's not something that we've done at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Diane Dillman.
Hi, I'm Diane Dillman, and I live at 233 Old State Road. And I bought this house 5 weeks ago. I am still unpacking, and I bought this house because I wanted open spaces. And I love the fields across the street, and I was led to believe that this was open land and it wasn't going to be developed. And I just found out about this yesterday, and I feel like just starting to pack up my bags and move out of here. This is not what I bought this house for. I believe I would be directly across from your community center. There would be people there, this is the main entrance into this community, it looks like. There would be traffic, just tons of traffic. This is not how I want to live. This is not what I came here for.
And I'm certainly sorry you feel that way. There's actually 6 or 7 entrances, and Gary might want to comment on that, to keep the traffic down from anyone. And we purposely created a huge buffer on Old State Road, which you see those fields there. But we'd be happy to sit down and meet with you. And I'm sorry that the understanding of the property and that it was private property was not conveyed to you when you bought your house. But we're happy to meet with you and have that discussion at any time.
Well, I'd be happy to meet with you, but I don't think that's going to change my feelings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dillman. Have a nice evening. Ms. Sheets, Judy Sheets.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Sheets, please, name and
Okay.
address.
Judy Sheets, 117 Old State Road. Roughly across from the upper left-hand corner where I see what looks like paths, but I am assuming that there will be houses in that area, and I'll be looking in their backyards, which I'm not happy about, of course. I'm also concerned about the historic one-room schoolhouse that would be somewhere around the area of the community center. Apparently, you have been ignoring that for the last 5 or 6 years that you've owned this property. It's been grown up so much that you can barely see the property anymore. I see that the township's motto is rooted in history, growing in promise, and I think we're erasing history with some of these things that you have in mind. I think that could be preserved. I don't know why it couldn't be preserved. I also have issues with the runoff. We have very steep slopes in this area, and there's a lot of runoff, and the township unfortunately has had problems in many areas of stormwater runoff, and this is going to contribute to it because you're going to have more paved areas and so forth. Also, speaking on behalf of my daughter, who's unfortunately suffering from a migraine tonight, so she's asked me to comment about the equestrian center. She runs her own equestrian center, a boarding business, 1 mile up the road. You don't need another equestrian center. We also have a farmer's market 1.5 miles up the road. You don't need another farmer's market. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sheets. Lisa Stadison?
Hi, good evening. Lisa Sadison, 302 Willowbrook Lane. Just like to echo Judy's comments with regards to concerns about existing services within the community. I think about that horse farm at the end of 113. I think about the Reningers, who's been a staple of this community for many, many years. That farm, would just hate to think about what would happen to them, you know, as part of that, folks that have contributed to the community for many, many years. The other thought that I have is I have young children in school and would be interested in understanding the impact to the school. It's my understanding, particularly for Oaks Elementary, that it's very crowded, overrun. I would just hate to think about potential, you know, rezoning and the impact it would have to the children that are, you know, in schools and steadfast. I realize we're years off, but my little one's in just starting kindergarten. So I'd like to, you know, understand that, and just the impact to the roads, being on Willowbrook, we're a through street, and just starting to think about, you know, we have a nice quiet street, but with a big, you know, center on the other side of us, you know, how would our street be utilized differently? And just in general, enjoy the open space, and it's going to be a hard pill to swallow, even as thoughtful as this plan has been. It'd just be a hard pill to swallow to not have this open space. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Middaugh? Try again, Kevin. I was a little slow on the buttons.
Hear me now?
Gotcha.
All right. Kevin Middaugh, 139 Hemlock Drive. With the current zoning for this property, what could be built?
I'm sorry, say that again?
With the current zoning as it is now for this piece of property, what could be built?
It's an institutional zone, so you could have college, university, hospital, monastery. There is a few different types of age-restricted facilities. The one that Eric brought up earlier was personal care, and personal care or assisted living facilities are anywhere between 12 to 15 units per acre, and that's 2 beds per dwelling unit.
All right, that was my curiosity. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Victoria Bright.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I'm Victoria Bright. I'm at 364 Vista Drive in Rivers Bend Community, which is off of Drybelbis Road, Upper Providence Township. So Dr. Rifkin and Mr. Berman, thank you very much for the presentation. I have made about 3 pages of notes, so bear with me. I actually worked for Park House when it was the Montgomery County Geriatric Center as a consultant.
Oh, good.
I knew it to be a facility that Montgomery County was very proud of. I knew it to be a facility where many of the individuals who had received services there were also very proud of. And then when Park House was bought out by Mid-Atlantic, many of the staff and the residents were quite concerned about what the future held. The county, as was stated earlier, the county made a commitment that the community would be managed through Upper Providence Township, and that the purpose of Park House was to be maintained as a facility that would support persons who need nursing home level of care and assisted living level of care. You have since sold that property with the understanding that you also have another 175 acres that you can now develop. I don't know that the original intention was for you to sell off after 5 years the geriatric center and then to turn around and develop the remaining 175 acres. However, since I am a resident and I have to drive out of Drybelbis Road onto 113 and 2nd Avenue every day, I take my life into quite extreme concern because the traffic at that area is quite serious. There is major infrastructure issues that would need to be contained through the PennDOT, through the Department of Transportation, and certainly through the township because of water runoff. I heard earlier mentioned a traffic circle. The 1-lane bridge does allow for cars to slow down, which would mean that if there was going to be change in roadways, the safety and the speed would obviously be an impact. Not to just mention that if you're talking about potentially 600 units, and I'm assuming that there's at least about 2 cars per unit in this property, we're talking about maybe about 1,300 new vehicles traveling on this roadway and around the surrounding roadways for the highest times of the day. If you sat at the corner of Route 113 and Drybelbis Road and you stand there in the farmland, you can see probably 1 out of 10 cars is almost going to get hit. So that's a major, major issue. I love the idea that you're talking about equestrian and demand for an equestrian facility, but we have several equestrian facilities around us, so I don't really know that there's demand for that. If you've traveled 2 miles in either direction towards Phoenixville or Upper Providence Town Center, you're going to see there's already a town center. There's already retail. There's so much retail in Upper Providence now that it's actually discouraging because there's so much traffic. The other issue that I think is important is that our hospital systems, our EMS systems, our school district is at max. We cannot have more population for the density that you're talking about. It's a wonderful plan, but take it somewhere out where there's no other retail, commerce, residential areas. We are maxed. This is the last open space in Upper Providence Township beside what the county owns, which is why I bought my house 18 years ago in this community. And I think I speak for many of the individuals that live in these communities and say, that's why we chose Upper Providence Township and our communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tony Patrick?
Hello again. Excuse me. Hello again. It was long here.
I'm sorry, Ms. Patrick. I think I hit the wrong
Okay.
button. Go ahead.
Hi, 410.
A name and address,
Yeah,
just keep it all in
Tony
line.
Patrick, 410 Laurel Lane. That's Tony with an I. Okay, so our family built this house in 1958, and we knew that become the center as the Johnson home. So that's how long we've been here. We watched this grow so much that when I was a young kid, to the right off of Jaeger Road, that brown section there, the old farmer used to lend that property out, rent it to other local area. Like you said, up here, a little garden center for people to garden. Would it be possible to have more garden centers around here? Let's get rid of the housing, like the previous caller said about, we don't need another town center hall because I live here behind the Wawa on Egypt Road. We did not like the development that went across the street from us because we had the deer. I literally took pictures of a few deers that are passing through here now, somehow coming through like the old railroad tracks across Gums Road, behind, along the stream by Mrs. Marnelli's house, over to the post office and stuff. I don't know where that deer has gone. It was here all spring, summer, fall, close to winter, and now we haven't seen it at all. I've driven up by the old Troutman farm where there used to be eagles, and now I had pictures of pheasants out there. It's kind of sad that I'm going to be seeing more houses built in an old area that we don't have open space anymore. That my street with the speed humps here behind Wawa, the traffic that comes through here to get to Lowe's or Target is phenomenal. What is the congestion that's going to be going on up here with the trees are dying only also because of the pollution that goes through with when you're bringing 500 homes, again, they're going to be 2-car garages, 2 cars at least minimum on some of these homes. Isn't it possible that we don't need another shopping center? I'm okay with the equestrian site because the houses were out there that used to, across the street from Black Rock with the farm used to be Black Agnes's that were there. Troutman's had to get rid of their cows because of what's going on, the building and everything. This is our only last hope for open space. And Mr. Rifkin, I'm happy you bought this. This was your piece of the pie in America. But how much property do you live on personally? How much do we have to give up? How much is built around your home? Couldn't we put cows back out there? Couldn't we have, more livestock again? Bring the farming back to our area. Jaeger's farm, Reniker's farm is down the road. Do something like that that's going to be given back to the community. You're going to charge us for a community center to be able to go to a community center that, if you have a swimming pool, we have to pay for it to join. Or where's the parking for the shopping center down there going to be? How much police do we have to hire to help patrol this area again? Yes, our crime rate has gone up in my Little Oaks Gardens area. And it's sad that this is going to happen to an old farm that doesn't need to be. My mother-in-law has pictures of sitting on that in front of the Johnson home, looking down towards the Schuylkill back in like the early 1930s, 1940s. It's just saddened me that this is going wayside, that our township supervisors are just like, oh, next property, let's build it up, build it up, build it up. We already got enough apartment complexes going up with, us residents fought against it, and you guys just allowed it to go up there, off of Hopwood Road. That, Wallaby Farms was down there, and now you're going to build another, Shell's Flowers over here on Longford Road, apartment buildings. Like, what more can we possibly do to control you guys in building? That's
So,
all.
I appreciate one little comment, and the one little comment that I make, and look, I respect everything that you said, but the one comment I would make is I think this plan is tremendously more conservative than any regular developer would be presenting. I really do. And I understand the concerns, and we're certainly going to look at everybody's input and how we can work with this piece of land. But understand that the term keeps being used of open space, but it's not open space. It really is privately held land. I mean, 5 years ago, I could have fenced it off or posted it, and people couldn't have used it, and sort of sent the message that it wasn't open space. But we didn't want to do that. We wanted to be good community members. So I think what we're presenting is a plan that is way conservative for the number of units, and is a pretty well thought out plan. But again, we're really open to input, and we will take into consideration everything people have said today. So I do appreciate your comments.
Stacy Miles. Stacy Miles.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stacy Miles. I live at 265 Old State Road. I have been here for most of 40 years of my life. My parents owned the home previously. So I grew up with the field across the street. I guess I have a couple questions, which I know some may not be able to be answered right away, but the one thing that I heard in the beginning was the talk of buildings up to 70 feet, I guess, would be permitted. Is that the plan here? Like, how high are we talking about? I'm thinking for viewage reasons. Like,
Gary, you want to answer that?
Or, I mean, most of the homes will be two-story homes, so nowhere near, and it's 60 feet, I believe, 70 feet, 6 stories. That's correct, 70 feet. The multifamily down in the lower right-hand corner are probably 40 feet, 35 to 40 feet.
okay. The next thing I just kind of
Miles,
wanted
if I can interject, the 70 feet, this is Eric Fry, the solicitor. When I said the 70 feet before, that's what existing zoning permits. So if somebody, for this plan, they would need a rezone. But if somebody would want to come in and build pursuant to the current zoning, they could build buildings up to 70 feet high today.
70 feet. Okay. All right. Thank you. I guess the next thing is living here on Old State Road. I mean, I remember when it would be 1 or 2 cars, in the morning going to school. We're now at the point where it's nonstop cars, to the point where it's almost like a racetrack sometimes in the morning. I have children, right next to my home from the development behind us that are catching the bus. It's already an unsafe area. I know there's things to be discussed as far as the traffic and so forth. I just think with this many people adding on to areas like Old State Road and Yeager and so forth, that it's just going to make the drive, no matter what you do or what you think can happen with traffic, it's just going to make it so much harder. Coming over the bridge to get to 2nd Avenue, coming home from work, is a horrible wait. And I think the only way to make that better is to make the roads wider, which could happen, yes, but Old State just had their road redone and we just had sewers done and everything like that. So I kind of feel like we're duplicating efforts there. And I guess kind of just talking about duplicating efforts, I know other people have already touched on this, but the areas that you say that are going to be in this land, a pool, we have 9 Oaks. Movies, we have the Movie Tavern. Trails, we have trails all over the place, even ones that lead up to the 9 Oaks pool already. We have cafes and libraries and all of that. So I don't really see anything new here that would be going here as a wow factor in that sense. And just like everybody else said, to piggyback on that, this is one of the last areas that people really appreciate, even just driving past it. You don't have to live on any of the surrounding roads. Just driving past it and seeing that open field still in this area that's not built up, it's nice. And I think we're going to lose that. I appreciate that you want to bring out the horses and everything like that, but we already kind of have that farm area now, and it's not improving it. It's taking away from the farm area to build another little farm in that sense. So I'm sorry, that's just my rant. I understand what you guys are doing. I guess it's near and dear to me from growing up here my whole life, and that's all.
Thank you. They're good comments, and thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep. Now I can.
This is Eric Stanislaw. I live on 301 Willowbrook, which is right at the corner of Willowbrook Lane and Jaeger. I'm not going to repeat any of the comments that were said earlier. I don't think I can add anything different or better than what a lot of my fellow neighbors have stated. So maybe it's more of a request. There's been a lot of comments about us being able to provide feedback. If this advances, maybe my request is more for the township, but would love to see some sort of formalized method of providing our feedback before it's too late. I'll end with that.
Thank you. Allison Wessler.
Yes, Allison Wessler, 180 Country Ridge Drive. I guess this is more towards our supervisors. It might be a lot more palatable for the community by possibly keeping this institutional and having assisted living. There's older people, there's less traffic. I think it's something that maybe should be thought of. That's it. Thank you.
And let me make a little comment, since I've been in that industry for a long time. What somebody who wanted to do institutional on this piece of property would do would build the pieces of a CCRC, continuing care community, not including the nursing home. So they'd want to build independent living, they'd want to build assisted living, they'd want to build, those kind of a community. You'd end up with much more density than we're talking about. You make that kind of a program work, like a Shannondale or one of those, they'd end up with a lot more density.
But there's only 10% buildings.
And there are folks that have approached us to want to buy the land to do that sort of thing. But I think they'd come back and propose much more density.
Current zone is 10%.
So yeah, just thinking of what the current zone is, it would be 10%. And, looking at what it's currently zoned as and institutional, the traffic, a lot of people spoke about how bad the traffic is and, just how much worse it would be with this type of plan.
Yeah, Gary, I think mentioned earlier, and I know the folks from the township did, that there'll be all kinds of work done around traffic. Is that right, Gary?
Absolutely. I mean, the traffic engineers and consultants, and this may not make logical sense because we're adding traffic count, but the goal is to take the traffic that's there and the traffic failures that are occurring and fix them with the additional traffic, so that at the end of the day, though it may not make logical sense, that the traffic flow will be better with this community and the improvements that are happening, unless they get improved by the township or someone else. Because at the end of the day, all the improvements will be able to handle the surrounding existing traffic as well as the traffic that's being generated by this community.
Thank you. Mr. William Felton?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Name and address, please.
Bill Felton, 133 Old State Road. And I guess I have some comments and questions. this property was originally created as a sustainable agricultural community. It was the Montgomery County Alms House. It was the county farm. It was the Johnson home, and now currently Park House. But the original intent back in the early 1800s was this was a community where the indigent population of the county could come and live, and they'd have a roof over their head. They get 3 squares a day, and they had the opportunity to work the farm. With that said, in keeping with the original intent of this property, perhaps there's an opportunity that Dr. Rifkin could reach out to Montgomery County Community College or Penn State or some other ag school, and to create a model sustainable farm community here. I mean, I appreciate, the horse equestrian side of this development, the farm market at the top of the page, and so on and so forth. But I think just a little more tweaking, get some more intentional agricultural element to this plan would be a nice feature. The question I have, or questions, is which Mr. Steckel brought up in the top left-hand corner of the plan. He pointed out that what looks like roads with tree-lined streets, and then the brown or tan areas. Can Dr. Rifkin or Mr. Berman tell us what the proposed densities of these different sections across the top of the page and down Yeager Road are going to be?
Gary, you want to take that?
Yeah, Scott, I don't know that we've gotten that far. The tan part that's to the upper left, those are the larger single-family homes. I would imagine, looking at it, and this is purely a guess, would be 30 or 40 homes. The next section that's on the other side of the Barn Community Center, probably a little more, probably 40 plus medium-sized homes, and that would continue along the back end of the community center where the cul-de-sac is. There's go down right, and all of that would all be smaller single-family homes. That curve that he's on, and the one that's below it would be townhomes, and then obviously the multifamily below it. As far as the townhomes, I'm guessing maybe 120 townhomes or 140 townhomes, somewhere like that. But we have not laid that out because we know this is a fluid conversation. We know this is going to change, and we wanted to put something out in front of the community to start a point of discussion. And so we focused more on the amenities than we did the density, because this, obviously this is going to change somewhat to try to meet everyone's concerns and needs. And so we just haven't gotten that far.
This is Bill Felton. Am I still on?
Yes.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And I guess that some of the concerns with your response would be, particularly in the more densely laid out areas where the townhouses would be parking. Would it be contained parking within garages, or would you?
Yeah, there would be coach parking or parking in the driveway, as well as a garage. The singles obviously would have the same. And just to clarify, someone had talked about the parking around the village center. All the gray areas that you see on the lower part of the lower right, that's all parking. All of that parking has been allocated for. So someone had asked about where's everybody going to park when they drive to the neighborhood village center to get a sandwich. All that is the gray area. It's all been estimated for needed parking.
Thank you. And one more comment, talking about sustainability and so forth. I mean, this is a south-facing slope, so I think there's a lot of opportunity here for solar design. Also, I'm not sure what your plans are for stormwater management, but given this many units and some of the commercial uses, some capture and reuse for some of your stormwater might be an appropriate opportunity and approach to do.
There actually is stormwater management. If you look, there are light green areas, circular areas all throughout the community that is for stormwater management, to manage any runoff that would go. They would be holding areas and then they would drain off the property, but they're all managed onto the property. One thing I failed to discuss, to the left of the assisted living at the main entrance, there is actually going to be a wet pond there. And what Dr. Rifkin and I had discussed is it would retain water, and you'd have small little rowboats, and it would be an activity area to enjoy. So the site designer, though, there hasn't been specific calculations for controlling on-site water. They use their best judgment to place them throughout the community, and you'll see those in all the light green areas for stormwater management.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to allow us to have some input into the design.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it.
Jeff, how many more folks do we have? You're muted.
We have two more, Julianne Bricker, who I've unmuted, and Alec Zachney.
Okay.
Is the last hand up.
All right.
Hi, Julianne Bricker. I live at 308 Willowbrook Lane, which is right across the street from Yeager Road. And I'm not going to reiterate a lot of what's been spoken tonight, but I am very concerned with the part of the apartments that brings in transient people not wanting to commit to the community, brings in crime. Have we thought about adding additional police officers? You know, again, that is very, troubling to me. I, again, bought this home in 2000, and, that was the biggest thing. We used to see the cows on the fields over there. It's now a posted, that you can't even walk it. We used to walk our dogs on that property, and now we can no longer do that. It's very, very disheartening. In addition to, I don't see there being any fix for the traffic. You're basically trying to add 1,000 cars, 1,000 plus cars, vehicles on 3 roads. You can't do it. That's just not feasible. It is just going to be a nightmare and create a lot of other issues. The traffic is just horrendous. It's going to be horrendous. And I don't see, even if you fix the bridge that's near the park house, it's not going to help. And I'm not going to be able to get out of my plan in the morning to get on Yeager Road to then get to wherever I need to go. And it's just very frustrating. Okay, thank you for listening, and hopefully there'll be resolution with the apartments. That's my biggest concern.
Thank you, Ms. Bricker. Alec Zachney.
All right, I've unmuted myself. Hey everyone, Alex Zachney here, 361 Vista Drive. I'm part of the Rivers Bend community that's off Drivable Bliss. I wanted to address a comment I heard from Gary, which is, they'll be bringing in traffic consultants and things like that. I'm not really going to comment on the plan itself, but I really want to talk about some of the, kind of outskirts and, the effects that might have, it specifically around, traffic patterns and public resources. I feel like, the development here, they could do all the work they want on these, roads here, 113, 2nd Ave, Yeager Road, etc. That doesn't address the fact that we have limited amount of access points into these roads. And my fear here is that, they're going to bring in consultants. They're basically going to give them the, the bottom line in terms of, what is their minimum cost or whatever that they need to do to, have an, somewhat adequate flow of traffic. And what's going to happen is all of this maintenance in terms of increasing access to 422 and other things are going to be then put on the township, be put on the taxpayers. And that's going to, kind of negatively affect not only, members of this immediate community, but all of Upper Providence as a whole. I think, we're not an area that has robust public transportation. We have to rely on our roadways. And, the fact of the matter is all of our roadways are, one lane each way for the most part. Adding 1,000 cars here will add a lot of stress to that infrastructure that, quite frankly, at this point is already stressed out. I think there really needs to be a robust plan around, traffic patterns and increasing access, not only to this area, but also to, our major roadways. Because, as, people from the Bennington community next to mine have mentioned, et cetera, it takes a while now to get towards, 422, to start getting to those, major, access points. And that's only going to be exacerbated under this plan. And I'm not convinced that, a developer, especially someone who's from outside of here, is going to take the, the concerns seriously, other than, let's slap a couple, lanes on the surrounding roads here, and that'll be that. That's not going to address the problem. That's not going to fix traffic on Black Rock as a result of 1,000 cars entering this area. And what's going to end up happening is, Upper Providence and Montgomery County are going to be, stuck with the bill in terms of improvements, as a result of this. And so, I know they haven't released any plans regarding, how they're going to, address this. But I would be, super curious to see that, because especially in terms of them getting their ROI, I don't see them doing both in terms of addressing the traffic patterns and being able to build this development.
So let me answer that question. I'm not going to pretend to be a traffic engineer, but what I can say is once this development with the community input has been fine-tuned and we have a better count of units, the traffic engineer will prepare a traffic study, and they will count the existing traffic that's on those roads, the failures of those roads, and the increased traffic, both daily and peak. At that point, they'll complete a traffic study with suggested improvements, and I would imagine that gets submitted to the township, whereby everybody can take a look at it, and we can have a hearing with traffic engineers that can answer your questions more intelligently than I can with regard to that specific issue. And I would imagine if you have concerns, they're better facilitated to handle them and to explain to you why it will work. I'm just not a traffic engineer, so I'm not going to pretend to be tonight.
Okay, Jeff, are we all done? Is that everybody?
Three people have added their hands up. I think we're going to have to cut this off. We have a lot of other business. I don't want to speak for you, Chairman Starling, but we have two other developments that we would like to get to tonight. It's already 9:40.
Yeah, we're going to end this now. This isn't even technically a sketch drawing. There's nothing here for us to vote on. A couple issues I wanted to address, though, that I heard people talk about: stormwater and traffic in particular. Our ordinances have been beefed up now in the township. We don't build developments the way we used to, 30, 40 years ago. Like we had somebody earlier tonight talking about the stormwater problems in their neighborhood. Those issues will be fully addressed and fully engineered in anything that's developed anywhere in this township now. The traffic impact study, road improvements, those absolutely will be required. And if you look at what the board did with the Yerkes project earlier and the amount of road improvement that's going to be done down there, you'll understand. But in any event, this is not anything to be approved. I think Dr. Rifkin and Mr. Berman got what they wanted, which was a lot of public comment and a lot of opinion on this plan. And I appreciate they were willing to wave it out there. It's a tough thing to go out there and say, look, we want to take this. It's a beautiful piece of property. I agree with everybody about that. I live right around the corner from it myself, and I drive down Old State Road. The views across this property, across the Schuylkill River to the hills of Phoenixville, they're just magnificent. And I definitely understand people's feelings about not wanting to develop this space. But like I said, it's not owned by the township. It's no longer the county. So, but we will, both the board and I'm sure Dr. Rifkin will take all your comments into consideration before we move forward with anything. But there's nothing to move forward with right now. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your presentation.
Thank you for listening and taking the time. We'll see you later.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Let's get back on our agenda here. All right. Now we have another development that wants to be heard from, the Foley Track or Rittenhouse Road, Jeff.
Yes, I've put Allison Zarrow, their attorney, and Brian Theron from Toll Brothers as panelists. So take it away, Allison.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. We will try to be briefer than the last presentation. We're here this evening, Brian Theron, myself, I'm Allison Zarrow with Riley Riper, and Brian Theron from Toll Brothers is here with me. We're presenting to you tonight a piece of property that is located on both sides of Rittenhouse Road. The address is 301 Rittenhouse Road, and it's commonly known as the Foley property. You'll see up on this plan the proposal that Toll has for this property, but I'll give you a little brief background first and then have Brian walk you through this plan and what Toll is thinking here. So this property is approximately 34.7 gross acres, and you'll see to what I would call sort of the northwest-ish, you'll see the high school. At the top of the property, you'll see Valley View Drive at its intersection with Rittenhouse Road. On that side of Rittenhouse, above Valley View, there are single-family detached homes, and there are also townhomes in that area across from the high school. Moving around the plan, you will see that there's preserved open space that is township open space that the township is obviously familiar with. And then on the very bottom left corner of this plan is Buckwalter Road. This property is currently zoned R1, and the R1 district has an option known as the mixed community residential option. That option is available to properties that are located within 4,000 feet of the center line of an intersection of Route 422. This property is located approximately 4,500 feet from the center line of an interchange. And so when Toll first approached this property, it looked at laying out a development that would only require that change to the zoning, just a distance change, and essentially lay out something on the site that meets that mixed community residential option. We filed a sketch for this back in September and appeared before your planning commission in October. And generally speaking, the plan had a lot of similarities to what we're going to present to you tonight. This plan shows 89 dwelling units. There are 67 townhomes, and there are 24 single-family detached dwellings. However, the feedback we received from your planning commission was that they weren't necessarily opposed to a change on this track rather than lotted out single-family detached dwellings with no open space, but they did request that we look at a smaller lot single type and to sort of increase the open space area and the area next to Buckwalter, give an additional buffer to those homes. So the plan that we'll walk through tonight is showing those changes. And so as a result, these are actually smaller clustered singles, and there is a increase in open space on the site under the mixed community residential option. This site would be required to have 5.2 acres of open space, and this shows under the net calculations 13 acres, a total of approximately 20 acres, including stormwater management basins, et cetera. And the density that we're showing is actually less than the current permitted density in that mixed residential community option. So we are looking at this conceptually and wanted to talk to you about it tonight. And Brian, if you want to walk through the board through the plan, what you're showing here, and your thought process, and then also talk to them about other things that we were looking at. You'll see that there are trails on the site, and as part of this project, we would be proposing improvements to connections and further expanding the township's trail network.
Okay, thanks, Allison. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight and letting us present this plan. As Allison mentioned, we've got some feedback from the Planning Commission Myself, Allison and I, in different situations, myself and the planner have had discussions with staff, just getting feedback, basic feedback on layout, and kind of some connections with the walking trail. So walking through, I think many of you are familiar with the Foley Track. It's 3 individual, more or less, parcels as you can see them. Focusing on the, as Allison mentioned, the northwest portion up by Valley View there. The way we laid that out, we've got 10 single family homes there, and I've got 18 townhomes there. With definite attention, we want to pay to Valley View. Obviously buffering that with the single family homes up there. There's a good sized buffer from where the houses will sit to those neighbors to the north there. We have in discussions with Anthony Valencia from McMahon have looked at the access point from that small parcel onto Rittenhouse Road. I know it's a tricky curve there. So although we complied with in our original layout with site distances, we wiggled things over to kind of get away further from the curve and continue to look at that. From that portion over to the more eastern portion, that's where our townhomes are. You're looking at, probably square footage wise of 2,000 to 2,100, a little bit smaller units than we've done in the township before. Kind of pocketed because there's natural buffering around. We thought that was a good location for that layout. Jumping down to the south parcel, and this was really feedback from, again, staff, planning commission. If you could imagine, if we had larger lot singles, it really took up a good portion of that south parcel. As you can see, the preserved open space in the old Hess property is due east of this portion. So kind of moving things over, still keeping a buffer from the neighbors on Buckwalter Road, and then adding some additional open space in kind of that corner of the development is what we were looking to do. So that's the plan, the basic layout there. Some of the other improvements on this plan here, again, feedback from staff. Obviously, there's broken portions of the trail network here, and tried to really connect things. There's a couple sections of trail that the Foley Track sort of sits right in the middle of. Up by Valley View, if we can start up in the corner there, that would be a signalized crosswalk. That's kind of what McMahon had recommended. That could kind of be the trail head, more or less, from that portion. So we would have flasher signals. We haven't gotten into too many details that would take you across and tie into the sidewalk at Valley View. As we come down around through the township park, along behind the Pope John Paul II School, we would continue the trail that's existing, tied into our development, the south portion of our development. We're also proposing a crosswalk that would connect, if you can see, Road C and Road D. So straight across Rittenhouse. That wouldn't be signalized right now. I don't think it requires it or it's needed there, but it would be marked with signage so that residents and people connecting through the trail could make an easy crossing across Rittenhouse. While I'm there on the township or the townhouse portion to the east of the townhouses, again, there's an existing trail, and we'll have a bigger plan. I think our next sheet is a bigger plan, but providing connectivity kind of around the development. We looked at it, whether we should go through, but I think that's kind of a nice meandering trail system through there. There's some woodlands and some steep slopes that we'll have to work through, but I think it'll be a nice connection down to Rittenhouse. And then the last portion of trail that ties into the community here is on the south portion, as you can see in the cul-de-sac. We're proposing a trail there connecting to like an emergency access road that would head out the back of the development. We've done that in a number of communities in the township to where we tie in trail and emergency access. So I think that could be a nice connection point to get more south. Jeff, can you pull up the trail plan? So again, feedback from staff, had some good comments to where, kind of to bring the connectivity from say Pope John Paul High School all the way to Route 113 was really what we looked at. And as you can see, dark blue, I would call it, is the existing trails and walkways, whether it's pavement or concrete. The pink would be what we're proposing. So there's connectivity. If you look at our site, kind of where the townhouse portion I was mentioning, as it meanders through that wooded kind of steep slope area, tie in also to Hess Road there, which future development's going across the street, but we'll get it out to Hess Road. If you look at the south parcel of the Foley track, this is kind of a blow up. We would connect down, jump through. That's the township parcel of land there. And then there's the Pico easement. Everybody kind of, I think, knows where that Pico easement is. So we would jog north up the South Lewis Road through there, make a right-hand turn on South Lewis. There's some existing sidewalk there on both sides. It's kind of, it kind of dead ends at certain areas. So we also spoke with consultants about, we would cross over to the north side of South Lewis at the Fruit Farm intersection. So that's where it kind of jogs over, gets on the north side of South Lewis, and then it continues down. There is the Bradwoods development that's come through for land development approval. They have a trail included in their plan. So we'd run our trail through to tie into that. And then from there, the trail is in great shape. It's been maintained. So we would tie into that. So virtually homeowners or anyone up at Valley View or anybody coming from more or less township line could have a straight walk all the way to 113. Definitely benefit to our homeowners. But again, I think it's something great for the community. So
All right, Brian, thanks, appreciate that. Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Good, okay, we've spent more time on this call talking about trails. Can we go back to the homes? Can
Yes.
we go back, bring the screen back to the homes? All right, I don't care about the trails. Trails are important and staff talks about trails, supervisors talk about trails, but that's not what my job is. Our job is to make sure that you put something in that's acceptable to the community. Trails will come because whatever you do, you'll put trails in. So let's talk about your homes. I look at this and I see track homes. You should put this development in Limerick Township. All right. I'm not saying I'm not going to be in favor for something, but what I see is straight homes. Look at that stuff at the top there when you're backing up to Valley View. Straight homes, 10 homes. Nothing creative here. And what I'd really like to know is you have a lot of townhomes, and you even mentioned that the townhomes or whatever homes you're putting in there, the townhomes, that they're smaller than you normally build. You build a nice home. I'm in a tall home. You build a nice development. Don't get me wrong. I just see something that's thrown in here without some creativity. If I lived on Valley View Road, I wouldn't necessarily want to look back and see 10 straight homes. If I could, Brian, and it's just, you know me a little bit. It just, what feedback did you get from the Planning Commission in regards to the stuff that's on the south side, the cul-de-sac? Why are those homes so tight? Like, I would rather, or those homes. Again, 10 homes, 15 homes in a straight line. Why are they so small and why aren't they a little bit bigger, which would match some of the homes, maybe not so as big as the Buckwalter stuff? Why is it so condensed there? If you have an answer.
No, thanks, Al. I appreciate it. No, I understand. We actually started with larger lots, double the size. I think we were 15,000 square foot lots, Allison, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I have the plan.
Maybe you can, again, maybe not for now, but maybe you can get us the other plan. This is the first I'm seeing. I've seen.
I understand.
A couple months ago. I mean, ultimately, I love the Planning Commission, but it's my decision and the 4 other members of the board to decide what happens here. So
yeah, we started out with much larger lots. I mean, obviously, we've worked with the township over the years on a number of projects. We've done bigger stuff. We've done medium stuff. The smaller lot stuff that were these 7,800, we've done these a number of times, so we're comfortable doing them. We understood the feedback was, open space, definitely on the south parcel. That's how we got here. That's really how we got here.
South Russell's the cul-de-sac, right?
Yes, down in the cul-de-sac. I'm sorry. So whether or not we could go, we would love the bigger lots, obviously. We like that. That's kind of our core. I don't think we're getting into much bigger lots, but we were going with between 12,500, I think, and 15,000 square foot lots.
That's correct.
Yeah, so we got here from feedback, to be completely honest.
I don't understand, because this is not the home you built. This is not your typical tow home. This, again, not that I don't like my Limerick friends, but this is what I see in Limerick all the time. And that's not Upper Providence. So I would rather see a bigger home. I would rather see a bigger lot. I don't know. I don't understand why open space. Well, it's when I have a 18,000 square foot lot, that's open space. I'm maintaining it. I mean, it's a big lot. It's a bigger lot. Who's maintaining that? Like all that open space for what? Who's maintaining it? Is it an HOA? The township, certainly. We don't want it. We don't want to maintain any open space. It costs money. So that south parcel, I would love to see what your original, without the belaboring the point, I would love to see what your original plan was. Is that fair?
No, I understand what you're saying. We've done this exact lot size in Chester Springs, down in Chadds Ford School District. We just sold out Chester Springs, or we're just about to. So we do have, obviously, in a lot of municipalities where we don't have that expansive room to do stuff, this is now the new trend. We're running into this more.
But if I live on Buckwalter, I care about who's next to me and what's the quality of homes. Half a mile from there, we're putting $900,000 homes, $1 million homes. There's 10 of them or 15. I'm not saying that you need to build. I would like to see what a bigger lot, and just for the sake of the size of the lot, if I lived on Buckwalter Road, I'd rather have a bigger home next to me than that. Now, if I could shift gears, and I don't know what your elevations are there. I mean, I could see, is that my impression is you're kind of from Rittenhouse, you're kind of up looking up a hill. So this goes up.
Way up in the air. You don't realize it, but once you get up there, you're way up there.
Right. But now let's go to the north side where the row of 10 homes to the left. Here we go. Okay. So again, that to me just ugly. And I know you're maybe trying to stay away from the road. But personally, I think you have way too many townhomes. I would rather see a little bit larger townhome or carriage home, whatever you want to call it. I'd just like to see a little bit more creativity with how these are positioned. Again, if I lived on Valley View, and maybe there's still 44 people in this call, if I lived on Valley View and I lived right there, I would hate to look at this, look out my back window and see this row of 10 homes. Now, unfortunately, and I heard from somebody who's done developing for years, don't fall in love with a view you can't afford to buy, right? So unfortunately, that's the problem when somebody builds behind you. But my job is to make sure that whatever goes back there fits the neighborhood. And I don't think this plan, as it is, fits the neighborhood. You're asking us to go from R1 and give you a pass on some, a few hundred feet. I understand that, but you're asking for us to just completely add a little bit more add more density and add homes that are smaller than you typically build on Toll Brothers development. And on the far right, where all those townhomes are, to me, that's Northeast Philly. All right, so I really don't like that either. So again, I'm not saying I'm not in favor of doing something here, but as this plan says, I'm not happy with what I see.
I understand.
Okay, I'm not saying I don't want to work with you. I'm just saying.
I understand. I appreciate that. I mean, again, we know it. I understand what you're saying, Al, and I appreciate it. We've always tried to work with the township to do something. I also we have to be comfortable. I mean, it's my job. It's, I'm on the line. I've got to be comfortable that I can market it and do well. And so that comes into it. We've done these before. We've able to, price points have been quite fine. But I understand what you're saying. The town-owned portion that we're doing it, it's a little bit smaller square footage, but this is nice stuff we do. We don't cut the corners, and I get what you're saying though. Okay.
That's all.
Jeff, maybe you can answer this. What would the yield be on this if it was R1? What would the yield of units be?
Well, how many acres?
Yeah, I'm sorry, how many acres is it, Brian?
It's 34 total. We netted it out to be 24 with 7 driveways on Rittenhouse, or 8 driveways, excuse me.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty, the number's gonna be pretty low because there's a lot of environmental constraints on the property.
Okay.
And I understand why you're not going. I understand we don't want all the driveways on the Rittenhouse. I get it. So I'm conceptually where you want to end up. You know, I'm not saying no to. I just want to see you get there a different way. That's all. Yeah, we don't want 20 driveways on Rittenhouse, right?
No, none of us want that. No, I agree with that.
And to your point, back to trails, right? If we want some amenities out of it for the community, that's why we need to give you a little bit of density. So we understand all that stuff.
Thank you. No, I get what you're saying.
Okay. Beat a dead horse. We've been here long.
All right. Any more questions from the board? All right. I think we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a presentation on the development of Klein Road. And this another Toll Brothers? Who is this?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for the board's time this evening.
We could have put you first. You'd have been home by now.
He is home.
That's right. True. You're right. You could have been in bed by now.
Yeah, take care, everybody. Have a great night.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right. We're looking for Tony Maris.
Members of the board, how are you?
Great.
I'm here, but for some, let me see if I can get my video to start up. There we go. Thank you all. Sorry for the late hour that we're getting to make our presentation. We're back before you again. If you remember back in the fall, we were in with a Klein Road project and we had looked at a 38 lot subdivision. We got some feedback from the board, some feedback from your staff and the planning commission before that meeting. The board took no action at that November meeting, or October meeting rather. And so we went back and looked at things and redesigned the plan, trying to look at a couple options. If the board will recall, we are looking for a change from R1 to R2 zoning. We are not looking to look at a cluster or flexible use design option. We are looking to develop this as a by right plan. The tables up top have some information from background purposes, but each of these lots as proposed would be a 15,000 square foot lot. We would have about 8.5 acres of open space and amenity space plus stormwater management facilities on the site. Part of the reason we're looking for a change in zoning is the by right zoning on this would be about 17 or 18 lots in the current R1 configuration. In consultation with the township's sewage engineer, Mr. Dingman, and doing some of our research, the soils in this area are generally poor for long-term on-lot septic systems. And I believe Mr. Dingman, if he's on the call, would confirm these are not ideal soils for that type of development. In order to develop this site as a public sewer facility, we had previously shown you and proposed a connection through Taylor Farm, where we would build a pump station at our cost. That pump station would service this development and the surrounding area. This plan shows that area and a proposed conceptual location for it. The benefit to the location of the pump station on the Taylor Farm at that point is not only would it serve the 30 homes in this community, it would serve by gravity approximately 38 to 40 additional homes in the surrounding area. More homes could be added to that by the incorporation of some low pressure systems in and around the region. And that's just using GIS topography. We would certainly work with Mr. Dingman. The sewer that we are proposing to connect to would go out with this subdivision up through Providence Corner and would eventually make its way down to the Schuylkill Interceptor, go under 422 and go to the Oaks treatment plant. As far as I can tell, as far as Mr. Damon could conclude, there are no choke points really along the way. But even if there was, we would have to solve that in order to get the Part 2 permit as part of the our sewage planning module process. So we would have to address that before we could give the permit for it. Importantly, we already adjoin other R2 zoning lots on our side of Klein Road. On the third map, Jeff, if you could show the board, shows the current zoning in the area just as an overlay. And I can't highlight it from, you can see where our subdivision is proposed, and there's R2 proposed in alongside Klein Road, and there's some other R1 in the area. There's some open space. So it's kind of a mixed use area. And then adjoining us on the other side is the Gambone Shopping Center. In considering our design, we wanted to have a connected street to come through, obviously. As Mr. Vagnozzi pointed out in the last call, I mean, we talked about trails before. We know that the community would ask for that. We'll work with you on locations for those. But the real effort we were trying to make was to pull the homes down away from the power lines. We do believe that a 15,000 minimum to probably 17,000 square foot lot is an ideal size for this community and this area and price point. It's indicative of the rest of the homes in the area. It wouldn't be out of character. We reduced the density, but it's still at a density that I could build the public sewer system, build the trails that we've talked about, build the pump station, and still have some upside to it. Certainly layout will tweak a little bit more as we get into beyond GIS surveying. There are some natural features we did try to avoid. We look over to the left of our Klein Road intersection. There's a stand of trees there. We'd like to try to maintain those as much as possible. Just to the left of that a little bit more, right nope, a little bit to the right now, between the road, yep, right in there. So we were trying to avoid some of the natural resources that currently exist on the site as we laid it out, manage stormwater properly, and provide a connection point through. So taking the feedback from last time that there was too many lots, some of the lots were felt to be too small. We went back and looked at this again, and we're asking for the board to consider rezoning this property from R1 to R2.
My turn again, or Mr. Chairman, is it okay if I have some questions?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Be on a roll a little bit. Okay. Very good. Mr. Maras, right?
Maris, yes, sir.
Maris, I'm sorry. Mr. Grace, what do we have to do here? Is this a text amendment or we have to change the zoning here?
It's a zoning map amendment. They're looking for a hearing. So generally, if you're willing to set a hearing date, we would, you could agree to set a hearing date tonight. I would work with Joe and Eric to set a date, and Tony, obviously, and we would set a date for 45 days in the future after we notify all the residents and get all the proper advertising and all that stuff done.
Right. And the R1, what is it, Tony? 17 homes here? I mean, for
Seven-
the R1?
17, 18-ish, and again, I'm working with a GIS survey, so I'd have to work it out, and I haven't plotted all the environmental stuff.
So, but now
fully.
your yield is now to 30, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you had previously come in with, what was it, 40 something?
38 was the prior yield. There was a misnumbering on a prior plan, but it was 38 that actually fit. There was an eyebrow, if you remember. The lots were a little bit different sized. So, we took your comments seriously and really worked to revise this.
Toll Brothers takes my comments seriously because I gave you the same kind of comments a couple of months ago. Well, no, this is.
Did you see Brian's hairline?
Right.
I listened a lot more.
Right. Well, this plan is a cleaner looking plan. You're coming in with a pump station, and this part of the community is it just needs a little lifting up. And I know folks have their sewers or their septic systems coming are going to start failing, and putting a pump station in on the township property or just adjacent to the township property, that could be useful for the community as a whole down the road. So I'm much more comfortable with this.
it's a clean look. You didn't try to, like with the eyebrow thing, you didn't try to stuff it. You just put a nice clean look connecting Klein with Linfield Trap. So I'm much happier with this presentation than I was 4 or 5 months ago. So thanks for coming in with something nicer.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
Anthony,
compliment.
How much is a pumping station, or if Jeff may have that?
The current estimate was, the estimate that I have, I'm sorry, the estimate I had was about $500,000 to $600,000, probably by the time you build a pump station, run the sewer pipes to it, and make the connection up to Providence Corner. And that would be for approximately 80 to 90, in that range, call it, so between 75 and 100 EDU capacity. So 30 here, 38 to 40 for background, plus whatever would be for Taylor Farm if you ever wanted to put facilities there, even if just even if you have passive recreation, which I know Taylor Farm is designed for or restricted for. If you want to have bathrooms or stuff like that there, and then there would be the ability to have any background that could get there through low pressure systems or any other type of for additional pump stations or E1 pumps on individual lots. So there would be plenty of background growth into that area. And that's really what we thought was the benefit to this, that no one has to connect right now from a source standpoint, but if they had to, there was the ability to get it there. And without the township having to burden that cost, or those homeowners bear that whole cost later. So it helps us and it helps you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, so R1 17 units, you're getting 30 if you switch it to R2. The last plan was 38. Still adding the pumping station, which has a capacity for 70 to 80 units.
Correct.
And you're taking 30 of them.
That's correct. And the rest would be for the township.
The rest would be for the township.
All right.
Again, they're looking to have a hearing, so
This
the only
costs.
recommendation we would make would be to advertise the hearing tonight, and then we would have the hearing and have formal testimony by Tony and all of that. We'd run it back in front of the planning commission and make sure their recommendation stood for the new plan. We'd formalize everything.
Okay.
So we pass a motion to advertise.
Jeff, do we have an ordinance even drafted yet?
No, not at all.
Okay.
They
so-
haven't had permission to advertise it to this point.
Gotcha. Yeah. So really you need an ordinance even to advertise. So because you have to have that, and that's what has to go to the planning commission. Planning commission, both county and local, have to have 30 days to review it. So there is some more. So I think it's probably a motion would be to draft the ordinance and authorize its advertised, but go through the process. Since it is a rezone, so there's a couple more legal steps we have to take there.
So do we want to wait? Do we want to wait instead of doing something now and we can do it at the next meeting, or do it now?
Yeah, I don't know what the township normally does, but it's a little premature to advertise because we don't even have that ordinance yet.
I think we need to.
Well, let's wait, right?
We need to see the ordinance. So you have a positive opinion at this point.
Yeah.
Go to the next step and come back.
Thank you. Eric, let me know if there's anything you need from me.
I think we'll work hand in hand with you and Jeff just to move this along. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Wait.
And thank you for moving us along. Next step. Thank you. See you again. Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right. Okay. And next on the agenda, we are going to talk about potentially doing something about the face period. If you remember last year, we extended the face period on the property tax bill to the end of the year. It was approximately a 6-month extension due to the COVID crisis and not knowing, what kind of financial hardship residents were going to be in trying to pay that bill. So anyway, we were going to talk about potentially doing something about this year's face period. And I think I saw our tax collector on the line.
She's coming in.
Okay, great. Julie?
Yes.
Great. Go ahead, Julie, unmute yourself.
Okay, it bumped me off. So if you asked me a question, I missed it.
Okay, no, we didn't ask anything.
Okay.
We were just, what's your opinion? What's your recommendation on whether we should do anything about the face period on the property tax bill this year?
So I brought this to Brian because Ryan Wall, who is the tax collector in Limerick, has already gone to Limerick and asked them to extend the face period or eliminate the penalty. I am the president of the Montgomery County Tax Collectors Association. I've reached out to the tax collectors in the county, and although I didn't get that many responses, I've not found any other municipalities that are extending. I reached out to the county's not extending. So I don't know that I have, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I wanted to put it out there to you guys because I don't want to put a bill out and change the dates afterwards like we did last year, because I am writing dozens of checks right now because people didn't read their late notice and paid the penalty amount when they only wrote the face amount. I'm writing checks for $12 and $22 and $16. And it is just, I don't want the bill to go. I would like to have the right dates on the bill when they go out.
Julie, what's the current due date?
So by Pennsylvania tax code, you always have 60 days to pay at discount and 60 days to pay at face. So our bill goes out on March 1st, which means the discount period ends April 30th and the face period ends June 30th. Last year, we extended that face period to the end of the year. So the only people that are being penalized on the county township bill is if you didn't pay it by December 31st. Now that was, the county commissioners, remember, gave that decision to each individual municipality. They have not indicated that that will be the case this year, and they have not given us any indication that they're going to extend the due date. So my fear is we bill the county and the township all on one bill. My fear is that the county won't extend and we do, and then that's going to make a whole other cluster on the bill. So I'm just trying to get the dates right before I send that bill out on March 1st.
Julie, can I ask you a question, please? So this is the township real estate bill. This is the one that the county bill comes out on the county bill, right?
Correct. We bill them together because they both go out on March 1st.
Right. This is not the school bill.
No, you would not have any
Yeah.
say. And that was a whole other confusing thing to people because I can't tell you how many people paid their school bill and didn't pay the penalty because they said, oh, the supervisors waived the penalty. Well, you guys don't get to waive the penalty on the school bill.
Okay, then you've been doing this long enough. Percentage-wise, what do you think the percentage-wise of the county and the township tax bill is when people accrue on their mortgage? Like, is it 80%? It's got to be a high number. What do you think the percentages of that people, the mortgage companies, are paying you?
We don't know who has a mortgage and who does not. That's not indicated on our records. That's
Okay.
why by code, I have to send the bill to the homeowner because that's only the information I have.
Okay. Then I forward it to my mortgage company, but I know the tax bill is 0.021 mils, right? It's really small, and we're not talking a significant amount of money. It's not like it's the $8,000 school bill. This is, if I'm not mistaken, mine's like $300 tops. So I don't think, given the COVID recovery and people have adjusted, and especially this bill, it's not I don't believe it's a bill that is going to break anybody. So I would think that we should keep it the way it is, or go back to whatever the regular timeline is, especially if the county's not extended.
Those who escrow their taxes, the escrow companies, mortgage companies have to pay in the discount.
Right.
So
right.
I don't know exactly, but based on the amount of big payers I have, I'm going to say at least half the properties in the township are escrowed. So at least half of them have to be paid in the discount period anyway.
Right, right. Yeah, and again, our village is very small, and we're not talking, most homeowners are well under $500. So it's not tax-wise, it's a small bill. So I just think we should just go back to where we were pre-COVID.
So Julie, what's your recommendation? What do you suggest?
Like I said, my suggestion is that it be decided before the bill go out. If Limerick's the only one that's doing it, I've been sitting here while I'm listening to the meeting, going over my lien list and proofreading it. I only lien 254 properties total of the 9,000 I billed. So there's only 254 people that didn't pay, and not all of those are county township bills. Some of them are school bills. So it's not a huge amount of people. And like Al said, although the county township bill isn't as small as the $500, the township portion really is. So you're talking, if we only waive you'd only be waiving the penalty on the township this time. The county hasn't said, oh, we're going to do whatever you do. So you're going to be waiving $5 here, $10 there. It's going to be more accounting. Not that it can't be done; it can absolutely be done. But if the county's not doing it, I'm not sure that I would push for it either way. Again, if things, now who knows what the decision last year was made in May. So come May, if things are bad and you guys decide you want to extend it again, you can always do it at that point. But right now, the county has not indicated that they're going to do any extension.
So it makes sense not go with the county, right? Make your life easier. Would it make your life easier?
I'm not worried about making my life easier, but people are going to get a bill that has 5 lines on it because the county's broken up between county tax and Montgomery County Community College. And then the township piece has 3 different pieces to the millage rate too. So now they're going to get a bill with 5 lines on it, and 2 lines are going to have one set of due dates and 3 lines are going to have another set of due dates. And people aren't going to know what to pay. You could bill it separately, but now that means we're processing a second bill. That's a second envelope. That's a second postage. You're doubling your expense of the bill. I would say to leave it as is now. And you always, last time I think you voted on it in May. Now, if that being said, if that happened again, I would ask that we send a second notice in May to the people that haven't paid by that point. We didn't do that this time. And normally these people would get a late notice in July, but their bill wasn't late unless it went beyond December 31st. So there really wasn't a reason to send them a late notice. I did anyway, but they didn't go out till December because for all I knew, they were holding their payments till the end of December.
Right, right.
It was a lot of delinquent notices for people who weren't delinquent. They were actually just holding their payments.
Julie, I looked at my, and not the supervisor, I looked at my tax bill from last year. My tax bill is $375 for the township. And my home is probably on the higher end of what most homes are. So again, we're not talking about $4,000. We're talking a small number. I think, and then the county bill is 5 times that. So that bill is really mostly a county bill.
And that county bill is increasing 5%.
Right. So we're not talking a whole lot of money out of the township, from the township.
Yeah, I'm inclined to not do anything. Let it stand as it is. And remember, we didn't do the discount period because we wanted the banks to pay on time. So yeah, people are going to get more relief this year. There's going to be more federal relief. I mean, I don't. It just doesn't sound like that many people took advantage of it. So I would be inclined to not do anything. I don't want to cause the confusion either between having one due date for the county amount and one due date for the township.
I agree.
Agreed. So Eric, do we have to do anything with this or just tell her to go ahead?
You can just tell her to go. So if she's keeping everything the same, you just tell her to go ahead, or if you want to make the changes, then you should authorize the changes.
Okay, so we don't have to make a vote on this thing.
Nope.
Nope, we're not going to make any changes, I don't think.
Yep.
So Julie, just leave it the way that it is then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks,
Thank
Rena.
you, Julie.
All right, our next agenda item is consider authorizing advertisement for bids for road paving project A. You want to speak to that real quick?
If Bill's not still on, I'm glad to speak to it.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
For 2021, the budget that was adopted by the supervisors includes the paving of Pitchelman Road, Dorothy Circle, Grasshopper Lane, Windy Knoll Drive, Hidden Valley Drive, Ashenfelder Road in its entirety, Hafner Road, Amanda Lane, and Scarlet Oak Drive. That is the 2021 road paving project. And we're asking the board's authorization to advertise that for bidding tonight.
Do we have any questions from the board?
I'll make a motion to consider authorizing advertisement for bids for road paving project A.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second to authorize advertisement for bids for road paving project A. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. That passed unanimously. All right, engineering and capital consultant reports. Okay. All right, manager and department head reports. Tim?
Sorry, I was on mute. You'll be getting a manager's highlights report out this Friday, but I have no items tonight. So I'll save you 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay, can I just ask you real quick though, Tim, where are we on COVID vaccinations for our policemen and firefighters? Are they making appointments? Is there anything available yet?
Just a second. I'm going to ask Rich Russell to speak to that. Is he unmuted, Jeff?
He will be in 2 seconds.
And by the way, I would also ask Rich to comment on our capacity and I know there was some concerns about us having a meeting in February. We do have space limitations given the COVID restrictions. So I'd ask him to speak on both those issues.
Rich?
Okay, am I there?
Yes, I can hear you.
You're there.
I cut out there for a minute and everybody was gone. So as far as the vaccines go, the county is still currently at 1A. They're hoping to go to 1B, which includes the police officers and the fire departments in the next few weeks. After that, it goes to the 1C, which is still probably several months out for elected officials, municipal folks, and like parks and recs, things of that nature, public works, things like that. We're still actively working. Lehigh Valley, Lehigh County, I should say, is doing vaccines for any emergency responders, fire, police, EMS. Some of our police folks have actually started to go up that direction because they're getting the vaccine quicker than what we're getting in Montgomery County. It's an ongoing thing. We're still trying to, they're not giving us the doses of vaccine that they're saying they are or that are available. So it's an ongoing struggle for everybody. As far as the seating capacity for the meeting hall that we spoke about earlier, it's going to be a challenge. I believe you're only allowed to be at 50% and have to maintain the 6 feet social distancing. So you're only looking at about 30 to I think it's like 34 people in the meeting room to keep the social distancing. So I think we're going to have to go to the solicitor to ask, do we have to allow everyone in if they come in? I believe that was one of the things before, that if we were going to have the public come in, we had to have the ability for all of them to come in. It wasn't that some could come in and then leave and others could come in. They had to have the ability to stay the whole time. So I think it's going to be a challenge to get everybody in. We could probably at least get the consultants, department heads, and supervisors back in, but I don't know about the public comment and the public folks.
Okay.
That's an opinion that Joe Bresnan, and I know he's not here. I'll ask him to rehash that and clarify his opinion. I don't know if Eric is still on, if he'd like to sound off.
No, I'm here, and I would agree with that. And the problem then becomes, if you're limited to 34, I'm looking at the list right now of the panels. We're at 15. We're halfway there already, just with the consultants and everybody kind of on the township team. And the issue then becomes if you got to turn people away once you get the whatever the number is, 34, 50, whatever it is, those people then have to go home. And I would presume you would keep a Zoom login, but you'd almost have to wait for those people to show up at the door, turn around and go home, and then log on. So it definitely presents multiple issues, but it's obviously something we can talk about before February and see how those, where we land on all those issues.
All right. I was really hoping to hear better news on vaccine. I mean, well, anyway, okay. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. All right. Do we have any reports from any of our consultants or a department, excuse me, any other department heads that want to give a report? Okay. Consultants?
The only thing, Bill, I have is, the Spring Mill project, sewer project will be starting in February. So you probably see some test digs and some saw cutting of that pavement. That concludes my report.
Great. Thank you, Bill. All right. Solicitor's report?
No report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. All right. Supervisor's comments.
I'll report that my book for this month is Crossing the Continent by Robert Goodwin.
All right. Well, the only thing I have to say is, as you heard from our last discussion, doing the meetings and things safely during this pandemic has been an ongoing issue since last March. And, we did get back in for a little while with just supervisors and staff. And then, the numbers got bad again. I was really hoping to hear better news on where the county was with vaccines. So we'll see. But we continue to address this and look at it almost weekly. So, as soon as we can get back in our meeting hall, we will. I promise you.
Yeah, and I think the end to that is really it's safety first.
Yeah.
If it's not safe to do, we're going to have to stick to this format. Unfortunately, no one really enjoys it. It's not a very good way to
it seems worse tonight than it has been. I don't know if it's because of all the people on. There's all kinds of dings and backgrounds, and even when I'm speaking, I'm hearing some kind of echo for some reason. I don't know what it is, but. All right.
Just saying, the other comment I wanted to make and go on record is that it's not that we do a bad job of the Zoom, it's the technology, and we can't control that. If it dips in and out and gets echoey or whatever, that's not something we can control.
True that. Okay. All right. Upcoming events. We have our Board of Supervisors meeting February 16th, and then again, March 15th. Again, next month, it'll be on a Tuesday because of the holiday. Planning Commission for January 27th is canceled. Next meeting is February 10th. Parks and Recreation meets on the 20th at 6. Comprehensive Plan Subcommittee meets the 27th at 6. And Municipal Authority meeting February 4th at 7. And all township meetings are in Zoom format for the time being. Okay. There's nothing else. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion for adjournment.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, that was unanimous. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Took us a while to get here tonight.
All right. Good night.
Thanks for everybody's
Thank you all. Good night.
patience. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night. Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Good night. Good night. Bye. Aye.